Race fans, the Sim Racing Club welcomes you to Phoenix, Arizona for the final race of the season. Coming in tonight, looks like we're going to have a 13-car field, and should be a pretty fun race here at the new scan of Phoenix Raceway. Jordan, we're definitely looking forward to a lot of fun. Almost forgot intros. I'm Andre Graham-Bush, joined alongside Jordan Harnish and producer Carlos Acosta. And as the graphic says, thanks to all the fans who've tuned in all season long, and definitely going out on a high note tonight, and looking forward to next season as well. But it's going to be a great race, Jordan. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so am I. Updated version of Phoenix, the one we've been waiting for quite some time now. We finally got it to round out the season here. Something iRacing added in last week. So really glad to be here at the newly revamped Phoenix Raceway. And I really can't think of any better track to finish the season now. We were talking about this before we went live, that they've done a really good job here with Phoenix, and it's one of the tracks you always look forward to coming to, because it is something just a little bit different and puts on a really good show.
Yeah, it really does. And this new iteration is a lot different from what I've heard. I haven't really driven on it myself, but from what a lot of different people I know have said, they added some grip. So the track feels a little bit more grippy, especially down low near the apron. And I like that. It's going to give the drivers a little bit more of an option when it comes to what lane to run. The old iteration of Phoenix was very slick, one of the slickest tracks on the service, honestly, and the outside line was kind of useless with how little grip there was. From what I've heard, we're going to have a little bit of multi-groove options for these guys. They want to go up high, they might be able to make it work. So I think these guys are going to put on one heck of a show. And I think another thing that makes it fun is last week, according to the point situation, it looks like the number 2 of Greg Evans has basically locked up the championship. Nothing can really change too severely as far as the points picture goes. And what that does, Jordan, is it kind of puts these guys in a situation where they can just have at it. They don't have to worry about racing around the playoff contenders and not ruining their day, or, kind of stepping lightly around them. They can go out there and they can race them like they're any other driver on any other week. And it's going to put on one heck of a show.
Yeah, it is. It really gives the drivers a chance to, like you said, let loose, just have fun. As the drivers' meeting was just completing up and just getting cars back on track at the end of practice here, Sam basically told the guys, strikes don't matter at this point. I mean, it's the last race of the season. There's nothing we're going to hold against you. I mean, obviously there's repercussions for every incident, but I mean, for the most part, racing incidents don't really matter tonight. And we could see some of the hardest racing we've seen all season long. Like you said, points don't matter now. I mean, it's wrapped up. Greg Evans was able to secure the championship last week. Second place basically guaranteed to Michael Krobach. He just has to take the green flag. The only battle really is for third. Scott Eckrich has a chance to get enough points to propel himself into third after missing one race of this round, as Tyler Seville is not here tonight. So that's the only change you can see in the top 4, and it's not even really a battle between 2 drivers because one of them's not even here.
Yeah, so it's really going to, like you said there, take the leash off these guys, let them race as hard as they want with whoever they want, and with a track that's kind of new. Obviously, we all know Phoenix, and these guys know Phoenix pretty well, but it doesn't take much to change the feel of a track. Just a slightly different grip level, a slightly different scan of the track. I mean, you got to think the track is a lot older now in this scan as well, so maybe a little bit more bumpy. The surface is different. So it is going to change the way it races, and it's going to be a game of these guys trying to figure out how far they can push their car and what they can really get away with. And Phoenix is one of those tracks that always tempts you to get away with just a little bit more, because while it is relatively flat, there's enough banking that sometimes it can catch you and you hit it just right and you get around the corner carrying a ton of momentum and you think, that felt awesome. I'm going to go in 10 feet deeper next time around. And then you do that and you find yourself on the outside wall. So it'll be a game of finding the limits, which is always fun to watch. These guys are incredibly talented. And just watching the cars in practice, this setup looks really good. I don't know what exactly the setup is, but I'm not seeing a lot of drivers get loose. I'm not seeing them fight the car too much. They seem pretty planted, so I think it's going to be a lot of drivability for those guys out there tonight as we do grid up for qualifying. And it looks like Adam Jersky is sitting on pit road waiting for his opportunity. Meanwhile, we got a few drivers that are rolling out, and I don't think a lot of these guys are going to be too tactical, Jordan, when it comes to qualifying. I mean, we got a 13-car field, so even if you didn't qualify, you're only starting about 6 rows back. So, it would be kind of pointless to sit there and wait for a cloud to come along and get that extra 10th. I think we're going to see a lot of these guys roll out pretty quick.
Yeah, I agree with you. There might be one or two stragglers, but for the most part, I think the whole field is going to roll out and get it all over and said and done with. I mean, this is one of those tracks where, like you said, you can start row 6 and you're really not that bad off because it's such a fun track to drive. There's so many options. You mentioned that uh, plenty of groove options, 1, 2, 3, even negative 1, 2, 3 below the yellow line, like down the dog leg, and even into turns what's now 1 and 2. A lot of drivers are going to utilize all that track space. And I took a few laps before we went live here, and it's so much more grippy than what we had here in the spring. I can remember this track being a track, how you mentioned, slipping and sliding, tires all over the place. Now the car is just glued to the track, and it's 100 times more fun than what it was before. So yeah, I expect some fast times, and a lot of guys come out right early.
And anytime we come to Phoenix, I got to ask the question: the dog leg, to cut or not to cut? What do you think?
Man, I've been, like I said, I'm watching these guys in practice. Every single guy out here seems to be cutting it. It's especially with this new iteration of the track. It seems like it's a lot more forgiving than what it was before. Before, it used to be really rough, and you could kind of get away without doing it. Now the transition's a little bit smoother. It's a little bit more forgiving. So I think a lot more guys are going to start utilizing it, and it's going to be just a normal groove on the track.
Yeah, definitely. I know on that old scan of the track, the banking transition was kind of brutal. You'd go down to the apron and it would kind of slam your car around. And of course, the other downside to it was you can't really see to your outside too well, so you might re-merge onto the track and find yourself nearly dooring somebody who's running up on the racing surface. But with a smaller field, that's not really a risk I think these guys are going to have to take. It should be pretty easy for them to duck down, I would say cutting the dog leg is probably worth about a tenth or two per lap, as opposed to staying on the surface, especially like you said, Jordan, now that it's more forgiving, less of a risk. There's really not a whole lot of a point in not doing it. Although it looks like to me the wall placement is a little bit different. Looks like there might be a little less dog leg infield. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, there definitely is a little bit. They extended the pit wall down in the scan, down a lot further now. So there is a little bit less of a dog leg there. You can't aim hard left, but there's still plenty there that you can utilize. And there's almost like a guide now where they put the lines for coming off a pit road. There's almost like a guide with the white line as it comes off a pit road, where it kind of invites you, hey, this is really where you should be to cut this, instead of before where it was a hard left and kind of hope and pray you found the right spot to do it.
I remember back in the day where if you were cutting the dog leg, it definitely wasn't on purpose, and you'd probably need a tow truck to get you out of the sand. So what a far way this track has come and how much it's changed. And definitely it's been an interesting journey with this track. I know some people are for the reconfiguration and some people are against it. I think overall it's still putting on a very similar racing product to what we used to see, and Phoenix has always been pretty good. Anytime you give the stock cars a flat track that's about a mile or less, you know it's going to be pretty good. It's hard to mess that up. So either way, I'm all right with any iteration. And hey, for this scan, you might have noticed it on the cameras there, is the number 17 is working his way around the track, Kevin Stone. The cactus lights up, Jordan. They finally fixed it. The cactus lights actually work.
That they definitely do. And coming from a former flagman myself, it's cool to see flag stands get iterated the correct way, and to see the cactus lights turned on is just kind of makes me smile every time I go by it.
Yeah, it is a very neat little feature. I love little things like that, little details. And iRacing is just getting so much more specific with the details. The scans of the track have come such a long way. I know there's a few guys I know that every time a new track comes out or a new scan comes out, they always take the free camera and they pan it around and they look at the outfield and the infield, and it's just crazy how far and how realistic these scans have gotten. I think there's an Easter egg too. My buddy was mentioning where at every track there is an NPC, a cutout basically, of Dale Jr. Somewhere at every track, there is a cutout of Dale Jr. Not sure if anybody's found it here at Phoenix, but it's there somewhere. I'm sure it's been there in every track, which is a neat little bit of iRacing trivia, as we have about 4 minutes and 50 seconds left in qualifying. Top of the board so far, Scott Eckrich. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody there, Jordan. He's kind of I would say he's the Ryan Newman Rocket Man of the league, always up there towards the front. If he's not getting the pole, he's up front. Michael Krobach with an impressive second place lap so far. He's about a tenth behind Eckrich. And Jeff Warden, that number 9, who's really been closing the season out with a lot of momentum. He's running out your qualifying podium at the moment, but just barely, as he does have Greg Evans about 900ths behind him and Troy Haight about 100th behind him. So very, very close lap times from the front of the field to the back. We're only looking at about 8/10 difference.
Yeah, you mentioned Scott Eckrich being Rocket Man. Just had to look at the stats because I knew it was a lot. I had to double check the number though. If he holds on to the pole, which it looks like he should, the only two drivers left to take a time are Mark Myers and Braxton Deweese. That'll be number 16 on the season out of 36 races, and that is absolutely unheard of. Almost matches his 14 wins on the season. So on top of being fast in qualifying, fast during the race, he's fast all around.
Yeah, definitely one talented driver, and what a season. Obviously, Eckrich won't be walking away with the championship this year, but it is a season where you gotta look at that and have a lot of confidence. Maybe this year wasn't his year, but you don't put up 14 wins and 16 poles if you're not a contender. And I think next season, providing he's going to come back and race again, he's going to be a car to watch, just like always. It's been a phenomenal year. We do have one of those cars you mentioned that hadn't turned a lap there, Jordan. Braxton Deweese finally is out on track. He's going to turn his lap and gets into the wall a little bit. I don't think that's the fast line, Jordan.
Yeah, no, definitely not the line you want. Luckily for him, he hadn't crossed the start-finish line yet, so he can hit the reset button and try again. But that's one of the things that these guys have always been trying to do is run that high line through the final couple corners and get a run to the start-finish line. And it's a little bit tougher here. Even with the reconfiguration, there's not much grip against the wall in what is now turn 4. So definitely a risk you have to take. I think it's actually considered that turn 3. But yeah, definitely a risk you have to try to take, and if you can get that run, it works out really well.
Yeah, sometimes you can just get that outside line, hook it just right, and then on exit you can kind of drive down the banking and build up momentum that way. It's just you got to get the entrance just right, and your speed has to be absolutely perfect. If you're 5 mile an hour too fast, you're going to find yourself on the outside wall, and if you're 5 mile an hour too slow, well, you might just find yourself getting a little bit loose into the corner. So it's a game of inches for these guys. As Braxton's going to go back out. As you mentioned, he didn't cross the line, so he crossed it that time. That's a little bit loose coming out of turn 4. But yeah, as our producer mentioned, let's see if we can maybe have a word with the champion who locked it up, Greg Evans, pre-race. See what he thinks going into this. Greg Evans, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
A little bit of an unconventional time for an interview, but Greg, going into this race, you pretty much have the championship on lock. There's no way mathematically that you can lose it. So you're coming into this race, I would assume, with a pretty relaxed mindset. What are you expecting?
We just want to, I want to finish the race tonight. Definitely want to be there at the end to kind of celebrate. I hate to crash the car and not be able to do anything, but just gonna kind of ride and just kind of see what we can do. That's what we kind of done all year, and hopefully things will play in our favor and we'll be there at the end.
Absolutely. Now, what are your thoughts on this new scan of Phoenix? How's the car handling?
It really handles pretty much identical to the old Phoenix. Seems like 3 and 4 is a little bit slippier. Or actually, that's no longer 3 and 4. Turns 1 and 2. Yeah, 1 and 2 is a little slippier. But yeah, I'm still trying to get used to this configuration thing. But it's going to make it interesting. I think it's going to kind of widen out a little bit. Hopefully, there's multiple grooves to be able to move around a little bit. So we'll see what happens on the long run, though.
All right. Well, Greg, looks like qualifying has about 30 seconds left. You're going to be gridding up, so we'll put you back in your chat. But we want to thank you for your time. Congratulations on the championship ahead of time, and good luck with the race, man.
Thank you, guys. I hope to see you at the end.
Greg Evans out of the booth, getting ready to grid up, and interesting to hear there, Jordan. I mean, I've heard so many people say this track has more grip. You said it. Some of the guys from another league that I broadcast for have said there's a lot more grip. And then here's Greg saying that it feels a little bit looser. I got to wonder if maybe that's a difference in driving style. Greg is somebody who he pushes the car to the edge, and it does not surprise me that if somebody's getting loose, it's a driver like that.
That's definitely surprising to hear. Like I said, I've talked to a bunch of the guys that are racing tonight, but they said it's definitely got a lot more grip. So it'd be interesting to watch Greg throughout the race and see what he's doing different than everyone else possibly with making the car loose. And maybe people will catch on. Maybe that's the faster way around. Obviously, loose is fast, so maybe he's figured something out no one else has, and it might be beneficial to him.
It absolutely could, and looks like they are finally starting to grid up here. And our starting grid for tonight is Scott Eckrich on the pole. Michael Krobach's going to be outside row 1. Jeff Ward and Greg Evans making up row 2. Behind them, you've got Troy Haight and Adam Jersky. Brian Yazik and Tim Knott are going to make up that row, 7th and 8th respectively. John Eckert and Kevin Stone up next. Behind them, Richard Fletcher and Woody Mahon. And last but not least, we're not going to forget them, Braxton DeWeese and Mark Myers making up your final row, 13th and 14th respectively. So 14 cars, 200 laps. It's going to be pretty interesting. I'm not exactly sure what our fuel mileage is going to be. I'm sure it was actually probably put in, actually no, it wasn't put in broadcast notes, but I'd imagine with a track like Phoenix, it's got to be somewhere around 70-ish, 80-ish laps, would you say, Jordan?
If I remember correctly from the spring, I can't imagine fuel mileage has changed too much because the track's the same size. It was about, like you said, 70, 80 laps. You want tires a little bit sooner than that. If at all possible. Obviously, if it goes green, you might try to hold on as long as you possibly can. Looking at the tire sets, they got 4 tonight, so 3 in the pit, 1 on the car to start, so 3 tire changes. So they could, in theory, break this up into 3 sections if they wanted to. I expect probably that'll be the route most guys will go, like you said, 70 to 80 laps. Try to break it up into about 75, and have a short run to the end.
Yeah, that could definitely be. I mean, last week we saw a strategy war kind of between the number 70 and the number 2, and the number 70 was taking an additional pit stop just for the tires. He was taking a 4-stop strategy. Greg Evans was taking 3, and ultimately Greg Evans came out on top of that 3-stop strategy, just 1 less. Number 70 wasn't able to make that time up, so we'll see what they do this week. Should be fun to watch, but the pace car is down pit road, and it looks like the number 70 is going to wait a little while. Now, this is something interesting, but the restart zone is basically the entire straightaway and corner. So some leagues have rules about where drivers can start. Some will let them start anywhere. Right now, the 70 is going to make his way down what used to be the front straightaway, now through old 1 and 2, but it's now 3 and 4. If I'm not confusing the fans enough, there we go. And we are headed towards the stripe now into the official Geico restart zone. There goes the 70 with a pretty good start, but the 72, Michael Krobach, he's going to stay pretty solid on the rear bumper. Didn't lose a lot of time going into 1 and 2 for the first time tonight. Number 70 right down on that yellow line. 72 with a wider entrance, and he's going to be able to use that speed to get a little bit of a run on exit. Look at that. And number 70 got a little bit loose and still pulled away. These guys are booking it here on lap 1.
That they definitely are, trying to get every inch of the car that they possibly can, even on lap 1 of 200, which is like we thought we were going to see. They got nothing left to lose. They want to race. They want to win. There's a bunch of drivers here this season. Michael Krobach, who's second in points, pretty much wrapped it up when the green flag dropped there. He hasn't won this season. He hasn't won in a couple seasons in the Cup Series, actually. So you know he's hungry for a win. And then you got Scott Eckrich that wants to pad that win total. Then you got Greg Evans, who just been dominant here in the last portion of the season. He wants to write it off with the championship and the checkered flag as well.
Absolutely, and Greg Evans was able to make a pretty solid overtake there on the 72. That's the inside. Now he's running down in second place, and he's trying to run down the leader, because Jeff Ward is right on the bumper of the 72. He is just about matching that corner speed identically, but taking a bit more of a conservative entry and then getting that speed on exit. So already we're seeing a lot of drivers that are running very different lines. Some are up high, some are down low, and some have different braking zones. So I think Greg was right when he said we're going to see a lot of different lanes and lines that these guys can really choose from.
Yeah, that's what makes Phoenix one of the more favorable tracks on the service, and even in real life. Is you go to a lot of tracks, even the shorter tracks, say Martinsville, Richmond, New Hampshire. A lot of these tracks, they're one groove. There's really not much you can do. Richmond a little bit more two groove than the rest of them, but there's not much you can do differently. Whereas you come to Phoenix here, you got 5, 6, 7 different options around the entire track. It's one of the most racy short tracks there are in the service, and that's why everyone loves coming here, or at least even watching the race.
Yeah, we got a battle brewing, a very intense battle between Brian Yazik and Adam Jersky. These two have been throwing these cars into the corner sideways. Jersky's working that high line, Yazik's working the bottom, and they've just kind of been trading off lap times. It'll be a lap where the 55 looks like he might be able to make the pass. Just when you thought he has it, the number 69 pulls back out ahead. As here comes Troy Haight on Yazik to put himself into the mix, trying to be a part of this battle as well. Forced the 55 up high, but you know what? That might have been a blessing in disguise, because that line worked out pretty well for Yazik. He was able to defend against Troy Haight, and he gained on the number 69. So maybe coming through 3 and 4, he tries that line again because it helped him a ton. As they come through the dog leg, 55 is going to make another run at it here in 1 and 2. Down to that yellow line, Adam Dursky back to the top as cars are battling in front of them. We got only 14 cars in the field, but it seems like they are all engaged in a battle at the moment.
Hard to get away from someone when you're constantly on the brake pedal. I mean, that's what you look for in things like this. Is even if the car count is low, that the quality of the drivers can stay together. 14 cars out here, they're all pretty much under a blanket, all running very close lap times. No one's way off the pace, so a short field, but the drivers that we have here, you can't say enough about them. They week after week, the ones that show up just put on an absolute whale of a show and are always under a blanket.
Absolutely phenomenal group of drivers, and I think sometimes a smaller field can actually be a better race. It just kind of makes it where these guys aren't in a hornet's nest where they're unable to move around and actually battle. When there's less cars, a little bit less to focus on, you can really zone in on that car in front of you, and you have the whole track to work with. And that's kind of what produces some of these great battles. So I think races like this are just as fun as any other, if not more fun, as they are still under a blanket, with the exception of our race leader, Eckrich, and that number 70. He's pulled away quite a bit. Looking at the interval right now, last time they crossed the line, he had about a 1.8 second lead, which is pretty substantial given we're only 10 laps into this event so far. Greg Evans still holding on to second, with Krobach not far behind him. But so far, that number 70, nobody has anything for him quite yet. And I'm watching the line that Eckrich is running, and strangely enough, it's really not that much different from what the other guys are doing. I think the only difference is that Eckrich is taking it a little bit further. He's just driving into the corners a little bit deeper, getting on the throttle a little bit sooner. You can see him get loose. That's how you know he's getting on the throttle sooner than the rest of these guys, because he's stepping on the throttle when the revs are low, when the speeds are down, and it's getting him sideways, but it's giving him a huge launch out of the corner regardless. And that's something that the rest of these guys aren't quite doing. I think they're taking a bit more of a conservative approach, protecting the tires, because getting sideways every corner exit eventually may come back to bite you. So just a difference in driving line so far, but Eckrich real aggressive early.
Yeah, and that's one thing if you think back to any of his 14 wins, if you look back at him all, he always is able to get out early to 3-4 second lead, and then he just kind of holds it. He kind of gets out there, gets as far away as he possibly can, or to a point where he's comfortable, and then just holds on to that gap. And sometimes it's worked. We've seen other races where he got out a little bit too far, maybe burnt the tires up a little bit too early and got reeled back in. Then you look back at like the second or third run of the race, and he doesn't get out nearly as far. So he kind of early on he uses it as a gauge, just see what he can do, knowing he has plenty of time to adjust if he needs to.
Absolutely. I mean, 200 laps is quite a long event here at Phoenix. It's going to give these guys plenty of time to learn the track and adjust their line. And most of all, I think it's going to give them time to figure out how the car handles on worn tires. I think at a track with very little banking, it's always kind of an unknown, or at least a bit of a wild card. When you got a lot of banking, when the tires wear, it's almost a guarantee that the main side effect you're going to feel is that the car is going to get tight. It's going to want to slide up to the wall. But at no point are you ever really going to feel too loose to the point where your car is just trying to spin out at every turn. But when you come to a track that's a little bit flatter and where the speeds aren't quite as high, yeah, the car might be tight at some parts of the track on old tires, but at other sections, such as corner entry, you might be fighting loose, which is something that doesn't happen at a lot of other tracks. So the longer these runs go, the more experience they're going to have on these old tires, and the more they're going to be able to learn.
I think back to the race at New Hampshire back a couple weeks ago. Kind of the same style track. It's a 1 mile flat track. The shape is obviously quite a bit different, but it's the same general concept. You're going down a long straightaway, barreling off into the corner, and that's where you feel the most of the tightness of the track, is barreling on the brakes, trying to slow it down, make the center of the corner, and then just matting the gas, trying to get off the corner as best you possibly can. That's where you're going to break free the entire time. So kind of the same thing here at Phoenix. Obviously, there's a little bit more banking. There's a little bit more of a unique shape to it. But if you were fast at New Hampshire, you're almost always fast at Phoenix.
Absolutely. Very similar racing style. It's one of those things that the guys who are good at these tracks are just good. It used to be back in the day when NASCAR only went to 2 road courses. there was a lot of guys that didn't put time into getting good at those road courses because ultimately they were kind of inconsequential. You went there 2 times a year, and it wasn't that important if you didn't do well. So the guys that were naturally good there or had a natural talent, they always ran up front. They always won. Now we really only go to a handful of flat tracks in the NASCAR schedule. And so the guys who are naturally good here, they have a huge advantage because when you only go here twice, that's less practice time for the rest of those guys that just don't have that magic touch. And it looks like Eckrich and Greg Evans are two drivers that are just really, really fast at this kind of track.
I've also heard people talk about these flat tracks, almost like road courses. You have to have the same kind of mindset. You mentioned road courses. You have to have the same mindset, the same kind of driving style to be fast at a road course as you do at this track. Because it's the same thing. Hard on the brakes, hard on the gas, but you got to have finesse at the same time. So, and it goes to show. Eckrich good at all the road courses this year. Greg Evans was good at all the road courses this year, and it's translating into right here tonight.
Yeah, it really is a lot like road courses. I mean, it doesn't look like it to the fans at home, I'm sure, but there is a level of finesse to a track like this that just can't really be translated by watching on TV. It's not just about where you brake, it's about how fast you apply the brakes, how smooth you are on the brakes. It's about how fast you turn the wheel, what angle you turn the wheel at. Everything is a game of millimeters when it comes to getting an optimal lap here. And that lap and the line that you run and how hard you have to brake, that changes every single lap because as you get brake fade and those rotors heat up and the brakes aren't as effective, well, then you got to get on the brakes harder and more aggressively. And as the tires wear, well, then you got to crank on the wheel a little bit harder. And every lap is just a little bit different. So it is just a game of feeling out the car, knowing the car, and also just having that sort of magic touch, like I said. So right now, with Eckrich out to a massive 4.1 second lead, you kind of called that there. Jordan, you said he gets out to about a 4-second lead and then stalls out. Well, that's pretty much where he is right now. Behind him, the battles have not gone anywhere. In second place, Jeff Ward is really challenging Greg Evans for P2. I mean, he's been on the bumper. These guys are running very similar lines. I think Ward is getting just a little bit lower in the corners by about half a lane. And that is giving him a bit of an advantage, but it's one of those situations where you have to set up the pass. Being faster in one corner isn't enough. You have to have a really good corner, set up the overtake, and put yourself in a position where you can get them on the next corner. Making a move in one segment alone is going to be a bit of a rarity.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's one of those tracks where, like you said, it takes a long time to set up a pass unless someone makes a mistake, and it has to be a big mistake to make it happen that quickly. You're going to be working 10, 15, 20 laps before you finally able to get to the point where you're like, all right, I've worked this guy over enough, now I can finally make this pass. The only other way to really get a pass quickly is put a bumper to somebody, which on lap 25 might be just a little bit too early in the day, something we might see later on the night. But putting a bumper definitely is an option going into some of these corners because you can do it without wrecking someone if you do it perfectly.
Yeah, the track is so wide, you can move somebody and you can kind of expect them to be able to catch it and not wreck. But as you said there, I think lap 25 might be a little bit premature, just a little bit. So these guys taking it easy. But I love what I'm seeing here because Jeff Ward is doing everything he needs to do to keep his car in clean air. And that's the beauty of this kind of multi-groove that we've been harping on so much. When the 2-car goes high, Jeff can go low. And when the 2-car goes low, Jeff can go high. And he's keeping himself in clean air, so he's not experiencing that aero push that you might otherwise have at a track that only has one fast lane. And that's kind of what's allowing him to stay right on the bumper and work this 2 over. Whereas if we were at another track, maybe he has that aero push, maybe he gets stuck, But right now, he's got a legitimate shot at getting around the number 2. And the other thing I love about Phoenix, and any track that really requires you to kind of manhandle the car, I mean, we are on the 750 horsepower package here, is that the lap times aren't consistent. There's times where Jeff Ward is massively faster than Greg Evans, and then the next time around, maybe Greg gets that time back. He's the faster car. It just goes back and forth because when the car is this difficult to drive, when the track is this technical, it opens up the door to just running inconsistent lap times all the time, and that just makes it exciting because you never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been watching this battle, even just a couple cars behind us, the 72 Michael Krobach, the 69 Adam Jersky. Not one driver in this group of 4 here is running the same groove. I've watched Michael Krobach run on the outside going into what is now turn 1 and 2. Like you see right here in the background, he runs right up against the wall and then cuts it down to get the run off of turn number 2. Adam Jersky seems to be running the bottom to the middle, and as you mentioned before, the 2 and the 9 are kind of just flip-flopping where they're at. One moves up, one moves down. So early on, only on lap 30 here, but we're seeing multiple grooves come into play, multiple strategies coming into play of what these guys are going to run, and that just makes it all that much more fun to watch because it opens it up for everybody.
It really does. And I mean, you can see these guys experimenting, right? Like some of these guys, they're not running the same line twice in a row. They'll go up, they'll go down, they'll do whatever. And they're kind of free to just experiment, see what works, see where they're comfortable. And that's really fun to watch. It's always nice when a driver has that freedom of choice. Yeah, this battle for second place, it's just going on and on and on. Jeff Ward, Greg Evans trading off lap times continually. Number 9 is going to get a good run out of the corner. He kind of drove it down the banking a little ways as he is going to close in a little bit on the straightaway, set himself up for probably a pretty good 1 and 2. And 1 and 2, well, I'm sorry, not 1 and 2. It's 3 and 4 now. I got to get myself out of this nostalgic 2005 mindset here. In turns 3 and 4, the corner entry is a little bit hard to get the hang of because you have such a wide exit. You know, it really arcs out where you're not pinching the car at all, and you have so much room to slide up that you kind of have to enter at an angle that predicts that arc, but you can't see it. You know, when you come into the corner, you can't see that arc. You're just kind of feeling it out. And it's really a corner unlike anything else in the entire NASCAR circuit. You don't really see corners that start out tight and then arc out to barely being 30 degrees.
You mentioned not being able to see anything. I mean, being this wide open, you think, you look down the straightaway, you're like, oh, you can see that, no problem. But the new walls are in the way. There's so much that goes into just driving off into that corner. By the time you turn the wheel left, you're kind of guessing, like, where the heck is the exit of this corner because it's way away from where you need to be. And it's such a short dogleg straightaway right there where the start and finish line is. You have to set yourself up perfectly for the actual dogleg and the kink in the middle of the straightaway there. And if you don't do that, then you're really in trouble. You've really messed up that entire straightaway, and you could kill your corner entry into what is now turn number 1. So your entry into 3 really sets your entire lap, how you're gonna be running.
Yeah, and you know, driver visibility is not something we talk about every single week, but it is something that I've always found fascinating because everybody has kind of a different approach to it. When you're in these cars, even in the simulator, your field of view is pretty limited. You know, you can't really turn your head. You're stuck looking out the windshield, and there's so much roll cage, so much car around you that is blocking your foresight of what's coming around the corner. I've known guys that they have, like on a notepad, different field of views and different driver heights and seat positions for the simulator for each track to suit their needs. And Phoenix in particular, I know a few guys who they will position themselves so that they can see around the A-pillar. Because when you're coming through what is now 3 and 4, and you're kind of going through that corner blind, that A-pillar can actually block your view of the exit because it's right to the point of the left-hand side that you need to be looking. So they'll move themselves around in the car, at least as much as the simulator allows them to kind of open up that field of view. And of course, if you have triple monitors or you have an ultra-wide, that helps matters as well. But yeah, it's always kind of one of those things that fascinates me. Motorsports is one of those things where the minute changes, the little adjustments that people will find to gain just a slight advantage never ceases to amaze, and that's one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the different style monitors, even VR headsets. I know guys have dabbled with those, the guys that run those, and they swear by them because it kind of takes the fixation out of it. You can kind of move around a little bit more. Obviously, you're still confined to a certain spot like you're in a seat normally, but you can move your head a lot more and get a lot more field of view that way. You can even use the driver window past the A-pillar. So I know a bunch of guys that have switched to VR, which I've tried it. Can't say that I was a big fan of it. Triple monitors is definitely I think the better way to go, but the VR is definitely an option now as well. And with iRacing, the advancements they've made in the last couple seasons, the graphics inside VR are just incredible.
Yeah, VR is definitely a divisive thing. Some people swear by it, like you said, and some people, they're more like you, Jordan. They're like, I don't know about that, a little bit nauseous or just not feeling it, you know. It's an interesting thing. The fact that we have that technology where you can move your head and then you're looking in the game where you're actually looking in real life. I mean, it's It's insane, and I'm telling you, it's not going to be long before we've got like these VR headsets that you can smell the race fuel. That's what I'm waiting for. I want to be able to smell that race fuel. I want to smell that rubber. That would be the most incredible thing, because to me, that's half the fun of racing right there. It's just the atmosphere, you know. Yeah, VR is pretty neat. These guys, they're going to do whatever they need to do to get the advantage, and everybody again has just a slightly different idea of what they prefer, what makes them faster. Still following along with this battle in second. I've noticed a couple times, right there, the number 9, he gets so close to the 2, and he looks like he's going to get it, and then he gets sideways, and he loses that 10, 15 feet, and he's got to spend the next couple laps making it back up. I got to wonder if he's just over-driving when he gets close, or if maybe there's a little bit of an aero thing going on there where he gets close, and the air is kind of going over his car, so when he comes on corner exit, it's a little bit lighter, you know, a little bit freer, and he gets sideways.
I definitely think that's an option. I mean, we talk about the what we consider the fun horsepower package. The last time that we're actually going to see this package in action, I believe, at all, the 750 horsepower low downforce package. I do believe even at a track like this, you can get aero tight. You can get the air pushed off the car just enough that you ruin any chance of a run that you had. And I think that's what we're seeing with the 9 car right here. That's why he's trying so hard to stay out of the wake of the 2 car, and any chance he gets right to his back bumper, that's kind of where he needs to be able to make a move, and by the time he's ready to make the move, he loses the nose, he has to start all over again.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We go to our 2iTV multicam. If the 72 is making his way around the track in 4th there, and then on the bottom, that is riding on board with the number 9. He's finally there. Gets to the quarter panel, does a bit of a side draft, uses the apron, and looks like he's going to be able to maybe stay at the quarter panel. That's going to be crucial if he can. And no, he's gonna lose that position. He's going to have to concede it. But that's about as close as he's came. He was at the quarter panel, got that side draft. But the thing is, using that apron like that, it's tough, Jordan. I mean, there is so little grip down there, and there is no banking. Unlike the racing surface, there's no sort of angle to catch when you start to slide up. Once you start sliding, that's it. So they got to be real careful. His number 2 gets very sideways there. And this is where the fun begins, Jordan, because it isn't just the 9. It's not just the 2 sliding around. It's everybody. We're 44 laps into this run. The tires are starting to fade. And these guys, they got a bit of a handful behind the wheel.
Absolutely, they do. This is where the smiles start really coming and the frustrations start coming at the exact same time. These cars are the most fun when you can slip and slide them around. When you can get behind the wheel, get up on the wheel, get those elbows out, start driving these things. But like I said, the frustration can also set in because you think you've got something, you think you're having a lot of fun. The next thing you know, you're sliding to the wall and the thing's not stopping. You're like, well, wait a minute, I was just having fun. Now I'm not. So it's a very fine line. This is always where I had a big smile on my face coming to, no matter where I was running before, 15th, 20th, 25th, doesn't matter. Cars start sliding around, you got to start wheeling it. You're starting having a blast now.
Absolutely. Driving on old tires is a lot like playing with fireworks, you know? It's a blast until somebody gets hurt. These guys are going to have to avoid any potential incidents, like you said. You know, you're driving around, you're having a blast, and then suddenly you're just skating up the track. Not much you can do about it. But the number 9, he is really making use of these old tires. He's liking the feel of this car. I'd say him and the number 2 are probably looking at pretty much identical tire percentages. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but just given the fact that they've been running the same pace for the entire race, and they've been running such similar lines, you know, one lap and 2's up high, and then the next lap the number 9's up high. They just go back and forth, trade it off. And with the tire wear being just about equal, I think the number 9 is just adapting to it a little bit quicker than Greg Evans. Now, Greg, obviously, the kind of guy who he's gonna figure it out, and he's gonna be fast either way. But just getting on the ball a little bit quicker might be what the 9 needs to make this pass.
Absolutely, and it's kind of interesting. The past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of guys that have been not afraid to race the 2, but very respectful of the 2, knowing his situation points-wise. And now we're seeing someone like the 9 of Jeff Ward, who hasn't been here all season long, has made multiple starts, but he's just able to finally race Greg hard, and it's good to see. It's good to see guys racing how they should all season long. Hard, fast, side-by-side, and there hasn't been a lick of contact between these 2 either. That's one thing that we should throw out there. They've been close. They've been right on each other's bumpers this entire time for 50 laps. Not once have they made contact. Not once have they even, what it looked like, thought about making contact. And there's 3 of them right under a blanket.
Absolutely. That's what makes this group so great. I mean, they are so good at racing close and clean. That when you do see incidents, when you do see contact, either one, it meant something. There was a message being sent, or number two, it's just a really rare accident, and it's surprising to see and kind of dramatic. It's it's really impressive how far these guys have gone, sliding as much as they are. And here we go. Number two got big loose coming out of turn two, and that allowed the number 9 to jump down to the bottom. And working his way through 3 and 4, he's going to actually be able to slide up in front of the number 2, Greg Evans, and he's finally got the position. That was an overtake 50 laps in the making, Jordan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very rewarding for the 9 of Jeff Ward to be able to finally make that pass. I guarantee you, he just had a big sigh of relief, like finally I'm able to get by him, but he can't slouch down too much because Evans isn't falling back quickly. He's right there on his bumper still, and the 72 at Crowbox's not far behind. So while you get a sigh of relief that you're finally able to make that pass, you're finally able to make it happen, you still get to stay up on the wheel and keep going.
Yeah, now is not the time to make a mistake. It's all too easy as well. I mean, when you've been following a guy for 50 laps and you make that pass, you think you got it made, but there's something in your muscle memory, I swear, because it happens to me all the time, where as soon as I lose that reference car, as soon as I'm not following that guy, and I don't have that sort of rolling braking point in front of me, I immediately mess up. And I push up wide, I overdrive, and then the guy's right back around me, and I think, man, I just wasted 50 laps to throw that pass away. So don't want to make that mistake. Of course, these guys maybe perhaps just a little bit more talented than me. That's why I'm in the booth and they're on the track. So probably not a mistake the number 9 is going to make, but something that does happen in racing. I mean, you make the pass and then just make a little mistake, and boom, there's the guy right back to get it back. So the 2 has not been able to really close back in on the 9. Seems like the number 9 really has a lot of speed that he wasn't able to show when he was trapped behind another car, because he is pulling away a little bit. And behind him, you got a couple other fast cars. I mean, you got Adam Jersky and Michael Krobach not far off their pace. In fact, Michael Krobach last time around was only about a tenth slower than Greg Evans, and that was one of Greg's faster laps in the last few. So these guys very close in pace. Adam Jersky sort of lurking there as well, really putting themselves in the catbird seat, where if anything happens with these guys battling, if somebody gets sideways or an incident were to occur, these guys are definitely in a situation where they could benefit from it. Look at this. We got a battle between Braxton Luis and number 55. Here goes Luis around the bottom. He's going to throw that slider and go up the track. Here comes the 55 back to the bottom using the apron. Braxton is loose, and he's going to correct it. The 55 concedes the position. Tell you what, I don't think either of those drivers was in full control right there. They were both slip-sliding around, as Troy Haight is also a part of this 3-car gaggle. Man, these guys are... this is the kind of racing we were expecting, man. There's really no points on the line here. Everything's kind of settled in terms of points. We're just here to have fun, and this racing looks fun. Is the 55 not home free yet? Troy Haight still trying to make that move up on the high line, it would seem. Let's see what he does this time. He's going to go high. Is he going to go low? Looks like he's going to stick up high. He's running a near identical pace. Ryan Yazek very loose, though. That 55 looking like it's definitely fighting him, and the number 5 as well. I mean, all these guys sliding around. It's hard to tell who's looser than the next, but Troy Haight really liking that outside, Jordan. He's really the only driver on the track right now that I'm looking at that's running that high lane. I mean, a few of these guys, they'll go up 1 or 2 lanes. But Troy, I mean, he's up just about where the marbles are occasionally in turns 1 and 2. And it seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah, it definitely is. Troy, one of those drivers that's not afraid to try something different, especially later on in these runs once these tires get worn down. So not surprising to see him up there. It's kind of surprising not to see anybody else up there following him. Usually when Troy starts going up, everyone else goes, oh, all right, maybe it's time to try it, but no one else really seems to be following along with him, which could work out to his advantage.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always a lot to learn from the competition, and if you think they're doing something that gives them a slight advantage, then sure, go ahead, try and copy their line, see what you can do. I've always I've seen races before. I mean, in other leagues where I've been a part of, and I've seen drivers go from being midfield to suddenly it's like they find something, their lap times go down, they're passing cars left and right, and you ask them, what did you do? How'd you get so fast all of a sudden? They're like, well, I was just watching the other guy. I saw what he was doing, and then and sometimes that's all it takes. So The fact that these guys aren't copying Troy Haight might be to their detriment. I mean, this number 28 is no slouch. He's a little bit further back in the pack right now, 8th place, but definitely a lot of speed. I think if he could get ahead of the 55 and the number 5 of Braxton Luis, or I'm sorry, the number 8. That is a number 5 on the roof. There's a number 8 on the tailgate, though. That's kind of strange. He might have something. That car seems to be pretty quick. But the question is, for a lot of these guys who are under a blanket, who's the first guy to duck down to pit road? You were saying split it up into intervals of 75, 75, 75, and then to the end, which would make a lot of sense, trying to cut down on the number of pit stops while still kind of trying to limit your time on old tires. But if you come down a lap or two early, you can give yourself a pretty good advantage. The question is, who's going to be the guy that's brave enough to do it? Because anytime you go off sequence, if the other guys are staying out, you're kind of putting yourself at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. You're definitely putting yourself at risk. If looking down through the running order, Scott Eckrich has a 10-second lead over second place Jeff Ward, and Jeff Ward's got an almost 2-second gap over Greg Evans. If I'm Michael Krobach or Adam Jersky, I want to be one of the first ones to come down pit road. I want to cut down the gap as much as possible. I want to get on fresh tires. I want to get out to as much of a jump as I possibly can to see if I can maybe undercut a couple of these guys and gain my position a little bit better. I don't think anyone really is going to undercut 11 seconds on Scott Eckrich. It's going to take probably a caution or a mistake on pit road to close that gap. But easily you can jump from third or fourth or fifth to up to second.
Yeah, you definitely could. And pitting under green, which I assume we're going to see green flag stops, and been green for 64 laps. At least the trend's been telling me we're going to be green. Tell me a little bit about this pit road, Jordan. I mean, as a driver, how tough is it to duck down onto the apron and get those speeds down before you're even out of the corner? Because the pit road entrance is prior to the exit of turn 4. You've got to be down on that apron halfway through the corner. And again, going down on that apron, I mentioned it earlier, but it's not forgiving. It's a real slick surface, and having to crank your wheel to get down there, it's got to be a challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My northern friends that are up here in the Northeast and Northwest and all the snowy states are going to understand this analogy the best. It feels like you're driving on snow at 50 miles an hour. You crank the wheel, nothing really wants to happen. The car just wants to go straight. And then when it finally decides it's going to grip, it goes way too much the other direction, and you start sliding the other way. So 75 laps on these tires, trying to slow down to that speed, it's one of the most challenging things that these drivers are going to face all night long. And then the other part of it is coming off a pit road. When I noticed during practice, a couple guys are having a little bit of an issue with this, is where to merge back out. Obviously, iRacing has what they call the blue line, where you can't merge back on the track before that, but some people think that they can go further into turn 3, and that can create turn 1, and that can create more issues in and of itself on new tires, because you don't have the heat level in them, and you go barreling off into turn 1 and the thing just slides around on you there too. So I think entering pit's probably a little bit more challenging than exiting, but both of them are going to be their own challenge.
Absolutely. And if there was an award for coming in hot to the pits, I think Scott Eckrich was definitely last week's winner, our current race leader. He had 2 extremely scary pit road entrances, clipping the grass on both occasions, almost speeding, but just barely getting the speed down to the realms of legality. And we asked him about it after the race. We said, man, you had a couple of sketchy pit road entrances. And he said, well, I'll tell you this. Any pit road entrance without a penalty is a good pit road entrance, regardless of anything else. So I think that's kind of a mindset they're going to have here, because it won't be easy, and I'm sure we're going to see more than one driver lock up the brakes or get a little bit squirrely, as we do have our first taker down pit road. That's John Eckrich in the number 45, as well as a few others. Looks like Richard Fletcher and Greg Evans. Wow, look at that. Third place Greg Evans among the first of the leaders to make his way down pit road, and Adam Jersky. But that's pretty early. We were talking about splitting it up into 75 lap intervals. That's 6 laps prior.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the undercut that I had mentioned there. Some guys trying to just get off sequence just a little bit. You don't want to get too far off sequence, but 5 laps might almost be the sweet spot. But the only problem is a bunch of guys took it. When you do go to try to take that undercut, you only want 1 or 2 of you to go with you, not half the field. So Greg Evans, Adam Jersky, Michael Krobach, John Eckrich, all on pit road early on. That puts up Brian Yazek currently in P2.
Yeah, Brian's staying staying out on track, gaining a little bit of position there. Greg Evans actually had to check up a little bit coming out of the pits, because as he was coming out, there's another car going into the pits, and that's kind of one of the challenges here. Luckily, it's not too big of a problem given how thin the field kind of is, but really, you're exiting the pits right where other drivers are about to enter. So you've kind of got this clashing of paces where, some guys got fresh tires, they're trying to build up that momentum. And other guys got old tires, they're trying to woe that car up. And when they come together, it can be a little bit scary, as Greg Evans found out right there. But Scott Eckrich coming into the pits right now, and another really close pit road entry there. He was just thinking about kissing those barrels there, and just barely got it slowed down. I think he definitely got it down to pit road speed. I didn't see any tire lockup, so he should be all right as he's working his way around the pit road corner. And that's the thing. This is one of the most curved pit roads outside of Martinsville or Bristol. Well, actually, Bristol isn't really curved because the actual pit road is on the straightaway. But outside of Martinsville, this is one of the most curved pit roads. And one of the things these guys might have to deal with is if they don't memorize their pit stall location, it's really easy just to go right past it because you can't see that far to your left.
Yeah, absolutely. And here in the Sim Racers Club, the pit road rules are fairly tight. You got to stay as close to the wall as you can rolling through pit road. I believe Sam relaxed it just a little bit before the race started tonight, so that way these guys going through the corner could kind of arc it through there a little bit. But yeah, on a normal occasion, you got to stay right out to the wall, and that in and of itself isn't going to make it easier as well, because you're cutting down that field of view, and your pit stalls are right in your A-pillar at that point. And right back to what we were talking about earlier of not being able to see going into turn 3, while going through turn 3 on pit road, you can't see as well.
Absolutely, visibility, a reoccurring issue here at Phoenix. But I'll tell you what, Scott Eckrich did not lose out very much, staying out a little bit longer. He cycled back out into second. The only car ahead of him is Brian Yazik, who has yet to pit. So once he makes his way down pit road, we're going to see that number 70 reclaim the lead, and he's going to seem to set sail again, just like he did there on the first stint.
Absolutely, and we talk about undercutting pit stops. This almost could work out to the advantage of the 55 if he waits long enough. While he's going to lose some here to Scott Eckrich very easily, he's probably going to fall back further than what he was running, but he's kind of almost setting himself up later on in the event when these guys are all pitting with what I assume would be around lap 140. He's going to be able to stretch it out to lap 150, and he's going to have the freshest tires of the field by about 10 laps, and that's a significant amount, especially at a track like Phoenix. I'd love to have 10 lap fresher tires than everybody else going into the final run.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a massive advantage, and it's really an advantage at no cost. That's the thing. When you stay out a long time, what you risk is you risk everybody else passing you on those fresh tires, and then it's up to you to make that time back up with the tires that are a little bit fresher, and it's kind of a give and take situation. But for Eckrich, he gave himself such a big lead prior to this pit sequence that there was no give. It was just take. He's taking the fresher tires in the rest of the field. He took the lead, and right now, there's no give about it.
No, I'll take out of that 70 car. Looking at the running order, he did lose a little bit of time coming off pit road, but like you said, with 11 seconds to the good, you can afford to lose a little bit there. He's down to a 9-second lead right now. The biggest moves that I see coming off of pit road, Greg Evans has retaken second place over the 9 of Jeff Ward, and the 69 of Adam Jersky is now taking over fourth over Michael Krobach. So those are the biggest moves that I see off the pit sequence right now.
Definitely a lot of moves made there. Braxton Luis also gaining a couple positions there in P6. Michael Krobach kind of where he's been for the majority of the race there in fifth. Yeah, a lot of battles all over the track, even still. Cars that are right with one another. Adam Jersky, Michael Krobach, they're within half a second of one another, even after nearly 80 laps of green flag racing. So really, really impressive to see how close these guys are. And again, just another benefit to the fixed setup that this league kind of has. Everybody has the same equipment, so you see them stay a lot closer and a lot better racing as a result. But look at this, Jordan. We've got the same battle that we were watching for about 50 laps. Jeff Ward behind the number 2, right on his bumper. He put in all that work before the pit sequence to get around him. Now he's got to do it all over again.
I expect he might be able to do a little bit quicker this time. That he put 50 laps in trying to figure out how to do it the first time. I bet he'd be able to do it a little bit quicker this time, but I expect the battle to be just the same. I mean, Greg's not going to just give up to him, and Jeff's going to give him everything he possibly can, as we see the 9 close in big time going down the back straightaway here into turn number 3. So I do expect him to be able to make this move a little bit sooner. I think he's going to want to as well, just so he doesn't get stuck there, as we see him using the apron here in the dog leg. Just to the inside of the 2 as they go down in turn number 1 and 2, and just the amount of respect between these 2 drivers is absolutely incredible. Plenty of room, both not giving an inch, but at the same time making sure the other driver has plenty of room to make their move.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, you mentioned earlier there, Jordan, that this is likely the last time we're going to see the 750 horsepower package in action, as next season we'll be going to the next gen car full time. So I'll tell you what, why don't we take a nice listen to the 750 horsepower package for possibly the final time and bring the noise. The never-ending battle for second continues as we return from Bring the Noise. The number 9 and the number 2 seem to be eternal opponents here at Phoenix here, Jordan. I mean, 86 laps, and these 2, I think, have been separated from one another for only about 5 of them. How often do you see a race like this?
This is one of the rare things that happens on iRacing. Usually everything gets strung out, and especially with long green flag runs, you don't expect to see... Sorry, on my screen, I just saw the 69 Adam Jersky sliding down through turns number 1 and 2. You don't tend to see battles like this last for 80, 90, 100 laps, but yet we continuously see the 9 and the 2 doing battle. And this is what we touched on earlier in the race, that the Phoenix is one of those tracks that invites this. They welcome side-by-side racing. It welcomes close battles all race long. Even when the race gets strung out on a long green flag run of what we're seeing 90 laps here, is the 2 of Greg Evans makes a crossover on the 9 of Jeff Ward, trying to gain back that second position. And like I said before we went to break, it looks like the 9 was able to figure it out sooner, and he was able to make that pass now.
Yeah, the difference here is that now the number 2 is behind on fresher tires. So obviously they were 50 laps into the run the last time the 9 got around him. This time they're only a handful of laps in. So the car's handling a little bit better, might play into Greg Evans' offensive capabilities a little bit better. Maybe he can stick with that 9, try to make the crossover if he can. But right now, a lot of speed out of that number 9. I think for Ward, it's kind of a game of, I think he let the number 70 get away, and he hasn't had the caution to bunch the field back up, because I really think the 9 has the speed to compete with the 70. It's just that Jeff Ward was in traffic for so much of the early portions of this race that by the time he got around everybody, by the time he put himself in a better situation track position-wise, Eckrich was long gone.
Yeah, long gone he was, and that's the thing that Scott Eckrich does best, is gets out front and runs away, lets everyone else fight behind him. And you mentioned the 9 just as fast as him. Looking at the lap times, that's almost exactly the case. And I was looking at the practice lap times as well. the 9 led practice for a majority of the hour session, and the 70 was mired back 4th or 5th. So the long run speed, I think the 9 car definitely has it there. It just needs to be able to catch a break and try to catch back up to the 70 car to get a run with it.
Absolutely. It really is going to be a game of kind of hoping for a caution for a lot of these guys, because that is going to be their main hope. A lot of these guys are in a situation where the leader's just so far gone, there's not much they can do but turn their laps. As Greg Evans way to the top of the track that time around, turns 1 and 2, got a little bit sideways, lost some time. I think he's just trying some different things, experimenting a little bit, which, again, a lot of these guys have been doing that all race long, just figuring out what the limits are, what the grip levels are at different parts of the track. And even, something as simple as driving on the seams where they have the sort of filling of the asphalt. That can also change your grip level. It sounds silly, but it absolutely can affect the grip level of your tires when you drive over them. So there's a lot to play with at a track like this. A lot of different things to try, a lot of different ways to race. And for Evans, it's obvious that he's trying to find an advantage here, trying to find something over the number 9, because I think Ward has been consistently faster all race long, which is pretty rare for Evans. I mean, usually Evans is the kind of guy that he'll beat anybody on outright speed. But here, he's fast, definitely fast, top 3. But there just seems to be that little bit, that 1/10 per lap. And I think that's the most frustrating thing, Jordan. It's not when somebody is a lot faster, right? Because if somebody's a second a lap faster than you, it's pretty easy to find something to close in. But when they just got that 10th or just a little bit a lap, then it could be anything. One little minute thing that you have to try and find that you're just not fully aware of. And it can be frustrating if you can't find it.
Yeah, it definitely can be, especially when you think you're running the exact same line as the guy in front of you, and they just start inching away lap by lap by lap. And you're like you said, you're frustrated. You're thinking, I'm doing the exact same thing this guy's doing. What am I missing here? And like you said, it's something always minute. By the time the race gets done, and normally in a normal situation, a lot of these guys would watch the replay and be like, oh, that's exactly what I did wrong, and that's what I'm going to do different next time. And as we see the 70 Scott Eckrich here getting mired into some lap traffic. Most cars he's been around all race long right here at once. But after tonight, these guys really aren't going to, I don't think they're going to watch the replay at all. I think they're going to be done with it. They're going to say, thank you, come again. I think a lot of guys are going to be not necessarily happy to see this car go, but not sad to see it go either. This is one of those cars that when it was in its peak of this body style, this generation car, it was a lot of fun. And then over the last couple of years, they've really made it different to drive. I'm not going to say bad, because there are some people that like it. A majority of people really don't seem to be a fan of this style car anymore. But I think a lot of guys are going to be welcome to see a new era into next year. Obviously, here on iRacing, we got the new car already in development. There's still some work to be done with that. And, it'll be interesting to see how that progresses over the winter.
And you mentioned just believing that the guy in front of you was running the exact same line, and it's funny because I've been in that situation where I was spotting for a friend of mine in a race, and he said, "Tell me what that guy up front is doing. What is he doing different than me?" And I said, "Well, he's entering the corner about 3 lanes up, and he's braking at the Sunoco sign." And he said, "Nope, that can't be true because I'm doing that too," and he's pulling away. So it is just little minute differences, even if you think you're running the exact same line. And going back to this car and how some drivers are going to be kind of indifferent to see it go, I think that's pretty apt. I think this car really has been divisive. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think overall it served its purpose. I think when they designed this car, when they made changes to it, I should say, back in like 2016-ish, they wanted to make the car a little bit easier to drive. They wanted to bunch the field up a little bit more. Kind of lowered this skill ceiling, which I don't think is ever going to be a popular decision among competitors, to lower the skill ceiling. I think a lot of competitors do want a car that will let a good driver be good, but their goal was to bunch up the field, and ultimately it did that. And for a lot of drivers on iRacing, in the simulator, I think, funnily enough, this car was better for iRacing than it was real life, because a lot of us sim racers, a lot of the people on iRacing, well, we have jobs, we have lives outside of racing. We don't have hours and hours to dedicate to learning a car that is basically a pregnant dump truck on ice when you're trying to get through the corner. So you give us a car that's a little bit easier to drive, and it improves the quality of racing for your average Joe in an iRacing official race or even in a league race quite a bit. I think it makes it a lot better of a racing product just to be that little bit easier. So I've always been a sort of a fan of this car. Maybe not as much as I love the Gen 4 car or anything like that, but I've been a little partial to it. And I think at the end of the day, regardless of opinion, it did its job.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to argue the fact that it did exactly what iRacing, exactly what NASCAR wanted to do. And I definitely can't argue the fact that it wasn't a bad thing for iRacing. You mentioned a lot of the guys with the lower skill set. I mean, not saying that people are terrible on iRacing, because that's far from the truth. But those of us that have full-time jobs, that, like you said, 40 hours a week, don't have all day long to sit here and play on the simulator and learn the nuances of every little nook and cranny of the car. It made the NASCAR racing portion of iRacing much closer. In the same token, it made when the pandemic started, I think that's what helped iRacing succeed to the point it's at right now, was you were able to license up so quickly through the pandemic, and you got to the Cup Series, and you were able to almost jump right in and win, versus back, if you think, when iRacing first came out, as we see the 5 car just bounce off the wall, get a little bit loose. Good save by the 5 of Braxton DeWeese. If you think back to, like you said, the old car, you couldn't do that. You had to spend hours before you could jump in a race, and that was just to be able to hold a straight line. So it definitely helped the simulator a ton. But there again, when you think back to the guys that have been here since day one, been here for 10, 12 years, raced on the old car, I know a lot of them were like, well, it kind of sucks for us because we spent the time, we did the time, we did the effort, finally get used to the car, and then they make it a heck of a lot easier to drive. So I can see both sides of the fence. I'm really excited to see what the new car can do next season, both on iRacing and in real life. I think it's a direction to go. I don't know if it's the correct direction to go, but I do think it's definitely a direction to go, and I'm excited to see what can happen.
Yeah, motorsports is one of those things that, one of the few sports that just doesn't stay the same, in any form of motorsport. You look at the stick and ball sports, right? Baseball now was baseball 50 years ago. Football now was more or less football 50 years ago. Golf has changed very little over the course of any of our lifetimes. But every form of racing is nearly indescribably different from what we knew growing up. I mean, Formula One is completely different than it used to be. NASCAR, completely different. Even rally, the kind of cars we drive in rally racing and the rules that we have there, it's a sport that changes, and I think that's what keeps it interesting, because just when you, like you said, the guys were getting used to the car tomorrow, they were getting used to it's hard to drive cars, and then it changed on them. Well, that's motorsports. It's a game of constantly learning and adapting, because you can't rely on it to stay the same too long. And I think that just stems from the fact that motorsports relies so heavily on technology. And of course, technology is one of those things that it just grows exponentially. We learn more and more at faster and faster rates. And we apply that to everything from the cars we race to the safety measures that we have, and any other aspect of our lives, including racing. So it's fun. It's definitely one of the things that keeps it fun. And the next-gen car, I'm curious as well. I'm a little bit skeptical, but what are you going to do? All you can do is watch and hope that it succeeds, and it should be interesting either way. But this race right now, you're watching Braxton DeWeese in number 84. That is Woody Mahon. These guys are battling for they were going to be battling for the prospective one lap down. But no, Brian Yazik is actually one lap down. So Brian is currently sitting as your lucky dog. He's not too far ahead of Mahon and Braxton, so we may have a battle for the potential lucky dog. Although, again, I'm no Larry McReynolds. I can't tell you the trends of the race, but it doesn't take a rocket surgeon to tell you that 111 laps under green, we're not exactly seeing a trend of yellows.
No, not at all. This is one thing that, especially late in the season, we've noticed here is very few caution flags from the top of the flag stand have been flying, and it's almost a welcoming sight. You want these guys to be able to race. You set a race for what we have tonight, 200 laps. You don't want to ride around under caution for 3/4 of a 200 lap race, especially only with 15 cars. It gets really redundant after a while, and boring for the drivers, boring for the fans at home to watch. So everyone always says a good wreck always makes a good race. And I kind of agree with that to a point where, like, yeah, one wreck, maybe one caution, we're good to go. But we don't want to see multiple wrecks. And unfortunately, on iRacing, every now and again, when you get one, you get multiple. So to me, I'd rather see the race go green and see the battles we're having in this race. I mean, there's been very little lack of excitement. No matter what camera angle we've turned to, we've always had some sort of battle on track. And at a track like this, it's almost rare to see.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, I'm with you. I don't want to see a caution either. I want these guys to be able to race it out and do what they do. We did pass the halfway mark a handful of laps ago. We're on lap 114. So I figure now might be a good time for a through the field and just take a look at our top 10 and see what's going on with their day so far, a little over halfway. We'll start with our leader, Scott Eckrich. This has been the car to beat all night long. This is a driver who seems to have found something that nobody else has, just continually pulling away. And the scary thing for the rest of the competition is that so far I have not seen any weaknesses out of Eckrich. He's good on the short run. He's good on the long run. He's good with the strategy that he's playing. Really, if there's a slot in his armor, if there's a weakness, we haven't found it yet. As he continues to lead the way, it's something to the tune of about 17 seconds advantage over second place.
Yeah, 17 seconds over second place, Jeff Ward. We've talked about Ward a lot tonight as we continue through the field here. Finally able to solidify himself in second, pull away from the number 2 of Greg Evans, just ever so slightly by about 3.5 seconds. So Ward, if only he could chase down that 70 car, I think he might have something for him. Unfortunately, I think the only way he's going to be able to do that is, like we mentioned earlier, an issue on pit road or the caution flag to stack the field back up. But nonetheless, what an effort out of Ward to end out the season.
And looking back into third, it's the locked-in champion, Greg Evans. He said before the race that all he wanted to do was just be here at the end and save the car so that he could do some burnouts, do some donuts, celebrate the championship, regardless of what position he finishes tonight. And so far, he's putting himself in line to do that. His car is just as pristine as it was when he rolled out. A lot of speed. I mean, still maintaining the podium, and still a little bit more time in this race to maybe find whatever advantage it is the cars in front of him have. So, a very solid night for the now two consecutive champion, Greg Evans.
Looking back behind Greg Evans as a 72, Michael Krobach, second points wrapped up for him as well this season. This is exactly what we've seen out of Krobach all season long. Top 5 runs, quietly just doing his own thing, not really getting in anyone's way, not really getting in his way, just quiet runs, clean runs, constantly in the top 5 all season long. It would have been great to see Krobach pick off a win this season. He had a couple chances that he could have had, and unfortunately luck just didn't follow his way on those races. But nonetheless, a very impressive season for Krobach. He didn't miss a race. Very few laps even missed, I think. I don't even think he really got caught up in too many wrecks, other than I think he got one maybe last week at Atlanta. Might have been the first one I can think of all season long, and I think he didn't finish. So incredible season for Krobach. Great points run, great run towards the end, and really good to see.
Absolutely, and rounding out the top 5 is going to be Adam Jersky in the Beef Jersky's Cheesecake Machine. Number 69 has had a pretty solid night tonight. Just going around in 5th. He's got some good momentum, and so far just having a pretty consistent night. He was one of the first takers down pit road, so he's currently on a little bit older tires than the leader and even a handful of other cars. But despite that slight disadvantage of being on older tires, he's still maintaining his position. And watching the lines that he's running, I don't think he's disliking the handling of this car at all. He seems planted through the corners, easing it in, easing it out. Exactly what you want to see out of your driver. Not a bad night for that 69.
Not a bad night at all as we look back behind Jersky, one lap down. Currently it's 55 of Brian Yazik. Again, Yazik, I believe he actually did pick up a win this season. What we expect to see out of Brian, he's always kind of the one guy throughout the field that's doing something completely different than anybody else, and that's what we saw tonight. He was able to run longer, and I'm interested to see how this strategy works out for him. We touched on it a little bit when he stayed out about 10 laps longer than anybody else, that he was the one that we thought that towards the end of the race that strategy might work out well. As he's still one lap down, but he's not too far off the leader. He's a little ways off, but once the 70 of Greg Evans pits, he's going to be right back in the lead lap. It might even cycle back out to the lead for a little while, and that's probably exactly what he wants to see. Cycle back out to the lead, pit from the lead, Might go a lap down, but hopefully those tires allow you to get a lap back and maybe advance your position just a little bit more.
And back in 7th, we've got Woody Mahon in that number 84 Mahon Speed Machine. And this is a driver who's really finished this season out on a high note. Found a lot of momentum late. And he's been having a string of good races. And, of course, that's the kind of momentum you want to carry into next year. Definitely a driver that's looking the next season. And I think he's going to have a good jump start if he keeps this up. His car's looking clean. And he is actually, I believe, closing in slightly on the car ahead. But a pretty good gap between them. So right now, if you're Woody Mahon, I think the goal is just to keep the car clean. Hit your marks. Do what you got to do. And if you're there at the end of this thing, I think you can go into next year with your head held high.
I hate to cut you off here, but if we could get a replay on this, Mr. Producer Carlos, I think the 2-car just spun out coming off of turn number 2. I could be wrong. We're going to see the replay here, but definitely some heavy damage on the left side of this 2-car. I think he might have had some trouble.
This is interesting. There is a lot of damage to the right-hand side and the rear end of the car, which kind of tells me maybe he backed it into the wall. We'll have to wait and see as our producer works on pulling up our 3xTV replay. As always, Carlos isn't going to miss a beat, so we'll get that pulled up when we can. The number 9 on track there as we follow along with him. He is currently running 2nd place, the 2nd car on the lead lap out of 3 at the moment. Of course, the number 2 is just usually with a couple of drivers up, Adam Christie. So we do have the 3xTV replay, top of your screen. Let's see what happened to Greg Evans. Coming through 1 and 2. Yeah, 1 and 2. Onto the backstretch, that rear end kicks out. You can see him counter steering. Not going to be enough. He slides into the inside wall. And I want to see where the rear end damage... Yeah, right there. That's where the rear end damage came in. That's the thing with Phoenix, Jordan. It's... You mentioned it when you talked about pit road, how sometimes you get sideways and you counter steer and then it grabs. And then you find yourself shooting into the outside wall. I think that's what Greg Evans was trying to avoid in that situation. He didn't want to overcorrect and come back up into traffic and snap into the outside wall. But the thing is, the backstretch here at Phoenix is incredibly unforgiving. There is no apron, there is no runoff, there's just a wall. So when the car didn't catch in time, he found himself getting that safer barrier and kind of spinning off of it. And unfortunately, getting a fair amount of damage there. That's got to be hindering him a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that when we talked to him before the race, he said he didn't want to do was bang the car up, and he unfortunately has done that. But that just goes to show what these guys are dealing with. I mean, Greg Evans all season long, I don't think I've seen him spin out on his own in the last 2 years we've run with him here in the Sim Racers Club. And in the final race of his 2nd championship season, he comes off of turn number 2 and spins it all by himself. And that just goes to show how difficult these cars really can be to drive when they have the high horsepower package, and how difficult this track is. And it's definitely a challenge for all these drivers, and even the best, unfortunately, make mistakes sometimes, and that's what we just saw.
Yeah, anybody can make a mistake, and at a track like this, it's not much that it takes. You get on the throttle 10 feet too soon, you crank the wheel a little bit too hard, and you're going to find yourself sliding. And then sometimes it's just kind of up to a lot of chance whether or not you can recover, no matter how good you are. I mean, if the track is really hot and you're just at the wrong part of the track, no matter how good you are, you may not be bringing that thing back around. You might be at the mercy of the wind at that point. So it's interesting to me. You know, Greg Evans was one of the few drivers we've heard say, yeah, this track is way looser than it used to be. And so far, he's the one driver we've seen with a bit of a self-spin. So still not sure what he's doing different than the rest of the field. He's clearly driving the track a little bit different to be feeling that looseness. I mean, obviously, we can see it. We watch his car, how loose he's getting. I just got to wonder what the driving line is there. It's definitely something. Just don't know what. As the number 5 makes a move around the bottom of the 0-4 machine. Mark Myers is working his way through. And yeah, not a whole lot of cars remaining on the lead lap. Crowbot is the last car on the lead lap. He's 26 seconds back. And we're at a track where the lap times are going to be somewhere around 29 seconds on fresher tires. So not far from going a lap down, and that'll leave just Ward. And Ward himself is not far from going a lap down. So I'll tell you what, Jordan, what's the over-under that Eckrich laps the field tonight?
I'd be willing to bet, unfortunately, for the rest of the field that Eckrich is probably able to put the entire field a lap down. Like I said, unfortunately for the rest of the field, fortunately for Scott, I remember Bristol. He had a impressive run and was able to put a bunch of cars a lap down, but I don't think he was able to lap the entire field. And if he was able to do that tonight, that just kind of solidifies the season that 70 cars had. Like you said, a couple of issues have made it so he wasn't in the championship running here towards the end of the season, but 14 wins, possibly 15 if he holds on tonight, is just an incredible season. Nothing to hang your head about, and definitely one for the record books.
Oh, for sure. Definitely an incredible season. And you got to think it's a little bit heartbreaking for Eckrich. You know, he's had such a good round of 4 after that initial bad luck at that short track there, the first race in the round. If that had not happened, you know, if North Wilkesboro had gone a little bit better for Scott Eckrich, we might be looking at the champion right now. You know, that's how little it takes, you know, how quickly fortune can change in a sport like this. I mean, the fact that he could finish 3rd last week, lap the field almost this week, and he's not in contention. That's what makes it interesting, man. You got to be on the ball 24/7. You can't have those off weeks in the playoffs. You know, they say NASCAR is a sport now where you got to be fast when it counts. And that's a lesson that the number 2 used to his advantage, and that the number 70 learned the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you wish that the circumstances that didn't happen. We were looking at a much different points battle going into this race. I mean, I don't doubt for a second that had what happened not happen, we'd be seeing 2 drivers, possibly even 4, under a blanket coming into this race like we saw last season with anyone with a chance to win the championship. With the events that transpired, it opened up the door for a bigger points gap to happen, and that's what we saw this season. So we talk about the championship being clinched. That wasn't the situation last season, and just circumstances around the end of this season is what led to a little bit different points battle. But nonetheless, it was a fantastic season. All the drivers are greatly appreciated for everything that they did this season. Having a transition mid-season like they did is not easy, and definitely appreciate they all stuck around as long as they did, and we're just hoping for a much smoother season next season.
Yeah, it's been a great season. I have thoroughly enjoyed my time up in the booth, getting to watch these guys duke it out every single week, and every week I think has had something to offer. Every track we go to, even some of the tracks that you don't always think of as being the more action-packed tracks, these guys have brought the fireworks. As the leader comes down pit road, Scott Eckrich, one of the early takers here. And again, it's almost not even worth talking about the strategy here, Jordan, because Scott Eckrich has one strategy, and it's go fast. It doesn't matter when he pits. It doesn't matter when anybody else pits. What matters is that Scott Eckrich is just flat out outpacing the field, and he's kind of afforded himself the ability to just ignore strategy, come down when he feels like it, and overall he should cycle back out with the lead regardless. So kind of a change in strategy, but one that ultimately I don't think is going to have too much of an effect there.
No, not at all. Like you said, just absolutely outpacing the field. And we've seen it a couple times this season where that 70 car has just been able to get out on a run and just go. And it's absolutely impressive that he's able to get out as far as he has. And like you said, I think early on in the race that the 9 and the 2 car battling so hard for so long didn't help their case any, because they were so focused on each other that it allowed the 70 Scott Eckrich to get further away than I think he would have had they just tried to chase him down. But at the same time, when you know someone is tendency has to be a lot faster than you, especially early on in the run, you might battle that guy like those 2 did for a long time, just because you know that's the battle you're going to be fighting for, and the heck with the guy that's going out front and going to pace you by 20 seconds. I mean, you got to run your own race, and that's kind of what those guys did.
Absolutely. Right now, there are 4 cars on the lead lap due to the pit sequence, but again, that's how far out ahead Eckrich was. He came down under green and cycled out just 15 seconds behind the leader, which is something you don't exactly see very often, as he's now working his way around Tim Mahon, Gumskin's Ford, working his way through, Chevrolet, Gumskin's Chevrolet, turn 1. I'm never going to get used to that. I'd call him that turn 1 and turn 2. Hopefully I've been getting that right. But, that's just me being not with the times. But big gaggle of cars here. The 55, Brian Yazek, 72, Michael Krobach, 41, Tim Knott. These guys all kind of in pace with one another in line as the 72 tries to make the move on the 55. Is Ryazik going to come down pit road? No, he's going to stay out on the track so far. And he's currently running P3, so we're back to 3 cars on the lead lap as Ward has put Mahon a lap down. And yeah, we are 145 into 200 laps here. So these guys, the laps are winding down. If anybody's going to do anything, if anybody's going to try to find something, they got to do it soon, Jordan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we mentioned, it's basically a battle for second on back right now, but there's still plenty of battles on track going on right now. Once the pit cycle rolls back around, unfortunately, the 2 and the 9, that battle is gone to the wayside after the 2's troubles. But just looking through the field, I mean, there's multiple drivers racing so hard and not giving up, even being a lap down. So that's definitely good to see.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to, the kind of lighthearted atmosphere of this race. Nothing's really on the line, so they can battle it out. It doesn't matter if they're racing for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. They always say in racing, you ain't first, you're last, but that's not really true. These guys want to finish as well as they can, and ultimately they want to have fun, and it's just fun to race around other cars. It doesn't really matter what position it's for. So these guys, I think they're having a good time out there, and this rescan of Phoenix is definitely putting on a good show for us. As number 5, Braxton Luis, he's working his way towards the number 2. I'm not sure if he's gonna, he's gonna have to pace maybe going low. Nope, looks like the number 2 is gonna defend him on the high line. Still rocking that outside lane. We've seen the 2 kind of migrate up there over the race. He used to be running that low line every single corner, and now it seems like he really prefers that high line in 1 and 2. As we do have the number 9, Jeff Ward. He's working his way down pit road, and that's going to put Eckrich back in the lead. Brian Yazik is second, and I believe Yazik still has to pit one more time, and that'll put him on way fresher tires than the leaders. I mean, this is nearly going to be 10 laps later if Yazik were to pit next time by. So an even bigger advantage than last time, but it would be kind of difficult, I would say, to use that advantage. I mean, we are getting towards the end of this race. We're close to 50 laps left. Use those fresh tires. You really have to get on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Time is now to slam on that loud pedal. See what I did there, and see what you can do. Make the most out of those. Make the most out of those 4 field goods you got on the car, and show us what you're made of. Looking. The 5 car almost makes contact with the back bumper of the 55 there, coming through turns number 3. Yeah, 3. So it'll be fun to see what's able to be done once those tires get put on that 55 car.
All right, I've had enough of these corners with Phoenix, and I'm relabeling them. What is now turns 1 and 2, that's the wide corner, and what is now turns 3 and 4, that's the tight corner. Yeah, the corner formerly known as turns 1 and 2, as Carlos said. It's confusing. I think they knew what they were doing when they moved the start-finish line to the back stretch. I don't think we've ever seen another track do that. So definitely hard to get used to it. I think we both have been kind of stumbling over that all night there, Jordan. But the race continues. Brian Yazik still not coming down pit road, so at this point, if he comes down pit road now, he'd be at a 12-lap tire advantage, but again, sacrificing so much time, staying out as long as he has, and he is the last car on the lead lap. So I think you were right, Jordan, when you called that he was going to lead lap the entire field. Well, when Yazik comes down pit road, that will be a reality. Eckrich will be the only car on the lead lap, and what a feat that would be, and what a message to send the field in the last race.
Yeah, absolutely. Cap this off with a big old, this is what I can do. This is what I wanted to do all season long. I put all you guys a lap down. Thank you. Come again and have a good night. Is what Scott Eckrich is about ready to tell the entire field. If he's able to finish on the lead lap, obviously a caution could derail that very quickly because it at least put one car back in the lead lap and ruin all his fun at that point. But nonetheless, like I said, it's just an absolutely amazing season out of the 70 car. He missed a few races throughout the season. I mean, I can remember a couple times in the regular season he missed a race or two and was still able to hold on to top 3 point position heading into the chase. And it would have been great to see the battle transpire if it could have.
And the number 55 has made his way down pit road a couple of laps ago, so that does put Scott Eckrich as lapping the field, which is, that is impressive in its own right. really crazy to see. You just don't see that every week. But now I'm curious to see what that number 55 can do with those fresh tires. There is a whole slew of cars that are only one lap down, and they are all on older tires than the 55. So really, theoretically, if Brian Yazik were to really get on that loud pedal and he were able to really use those tires to the full extent that he can, he could theoretically work his way up into the top three, even if he has the pace. So a lot of ground to potentially make up, and that would be, oh man, a leader. Eckrich into the outside wall in the corners formerly known as 3 and 4, current 1 and 2. He got into the wall, got sideways, and for a minute I thought he was going to lose it. He had that thing real sideways, but he gathered it up, and he was able to keep on trucking. But that's got to be a bit of a wake-up call. Maybe Scott's kind of falling asleep at the wheel there. It's hard not to when you got the whole field a lap down.
Yeah, definitely hard not to at all. And just a quick update, looking down through the ticker on the left-hand side, the 69 Adam Jersky, he had an issue about 30 laps ago. We're waiting to see if he was going to return. Doesn't appear he has done so. He's going to fall out of the event. Unfortunate for him, as he was having another great season, and it just really stinks to end it on a note like that and not be able to finish the final race of the season. But the 69 Jersky, unfortunately, has fallen out of the event.
Yeah, you hate to see it, especially on a night where the number 69 had so much speed. Definitely seemed like he had a good car. He was involved in a few really fun battles to watch. But again, it's on the next season. Take it back to the hauler, fix up the car, and just keep looking forward. Is what you got to do, especially in a race like this. But right now, everybody else just kind of running their laps. Brian Yazik not making up any positions yet. He's still in 8th. The next car ahead would be Troy Haight. So a little bit of a gap to make. But yeah, still some battles going on all around the track.
Yeah, we got a battle here. The 9 car trying to spoil the 70s party here. The 9 car just unlapped himself, so Scott's got some work to do to get that feet back, as the 9 of Jeff Ward, a little bit fresher tires. Starting to wonder if after he bounced off the wall, if the 70 car might have done some damage to the car and slowed it down a little bit, because the 9 is past him and is just walking away at this point. So that's a little bit interesting late in the race.
Yeah, you mentioned that he came to spoil the party, and as soon as you mentioned that 9, I switched to his camera on my perspective here, and he slid up through that dog leg it looked like he got shot out of a cannon, and he's continuing to pull away from the 70. So you might be right. Maybe a little bit of damage to the 70 as he's going to slide into the wall again, hard into the outside wall. Scott Eckrich gets a little bit squirrely and gathers it up. I don't want to say that Jeff Ward is certain to have a chance to get this lap back, but we've got 40 laps to go. If the 70 keeps slamming on that wall and getting damage, you never know. So if I'm Jeff Ward, yeah, the chances might be slim, but I'm getting on that loud pedal. I'm giving that car all I got.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to spoil the party if you can. If you're one of these drivers, Jeff Ward's got the best chance to do it. So why not go up there and make it so you're the only other car to finish on the lead lap? And I think, like we mentioned, he's bounced off the wall twice now. I don't think that's helping the 70 car. The lap times I'm looking at now are not a lot slower, but they are slower than what he was running before. So either he's trying to just make sure he can able to finish it to the end. He's got just about math is a thing here, just about 35 laps to go. So just try to get it to the end. That's I think the name of the game for the 70. Don't want to bounce it off the wall too many times, because as we've seen both times he's hit the wall, he's had the thing almost dead sideways in the middle of turns 1 and 2. So that would be really bad if he for the 70 if he was to spin that out while leading this event this far ahead.
Yeah, not the time you want to make a mistake, because I'll tell you what, when you got the field a lap down and you wreck yourself out, that's not something you live down. That's the kind of thing that gets brought up a lot in the future. So hopefully Eckrich can avoid that sort of scenario, keep the car clean. I think he will, as he has kind of kept it off the wall the last few laps. But man, he is getting real loose through the corners. I'm noticing him getting sideways quite a bit, and that's why running that outside lane that he's really started to prefer through 3 and 4 is kind of a risk, because when you run the bottom and your car gets loose and it starts washing on the track, you got plenty of racing surface to gather the car up before you reach the wall. Now you run the outside line, you make one mistake, your car slides just a little bit, and you're going to be calibrating the outside wall. I had a buddy who every time he'd get into the wall, he'd say, "I'm just calibrating the wall, making sure it's where it needs to be." But the 70 definitely calibrated that outside wall in 1 and 2 a few times, and running that outside line definitely kind of puts him at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about the outside line in 1 and 2. We touched on it before the race started, a little bit throughout the race here, but that's not something that ever used to be a thing at Phoenix in iRacing. You never used to be able to run up that far. That was usually wreck territory. If you got up that far, you were guaranteed to smack the outside wall. So it's definitely fun and good to see that these guys are able to utilize that outside wall like you would see in real life, and it's just another groove, another aspect to this track that makes it that much more fun. We touched on the 69 of Adam Jersky falling out of the race, and just looking at the iRacing notes, looks like the 43 Richard Fletcher has also taken the car behind the wall and has retired from the event for the night. So another driver who's made every race this season, and just can't say enough about Richard Fletcher. Every week he's here, week in, week out, just grinding it out, and unfortunately falling out early tonight.
It happened again. The 70 just got into the outside wall, and this time he bent in the right rear quarter panel. He got some substantial damage this time. I tell you what, I don't want to say that the 9 has a great shot here at trying to get this lap back, but at this point he's lapping half a second a lap faster, and the 70 is only going to progressively get worse the more damage he accrues. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, he does have a big safety net. He's got a huge safety net, and he can afford to take this risk. But I don't know. After 3 times sliding into the outside wall and now damaging the car, he's still running that outside line. He is not giving up on it.
Yeah, it's a bold strategy. I mean, the 9 of Jeff Ward is definitely closing in at a rapid rate. I mean, he's still got just about 25 seconds to try to make up in the 30 laps. So it's going to almost do a second a lap. And like you said, he's only got half a second a lap right now. So he's definitely got a tall feat to try to get all the way back around to the 70. But if the 70 keeps making contact with that wall and he damages the car to a point where it slows down a lot, there's a chance that the 9 car could get all the way back there and possibly steal this win.
Well, and it's not even just about the damage. Sometimes the wall, especially the safer barriers on iRacing, are a little bit finicky, and you can sometimes scrape them or bounce off them, and you can come out really no worse for wear. You scrub away a little bit of speed, but they don't really throw you around too much, and then you hit it that one time just right, and for whatever reason, the physics engine decides that because you scraped the wall, you should be ejected to the left at about Mach 1, and when that happens, not always something that's easy or even possible to recover from. So it's like the more you hit that wall, the more you're tempting the physics fate. So maybe migrate down a lane or two just to make sure. I mean, Jeff Ward, he is closing in a lot, but like you said there, Jordan, it's not enough. He would need about a second a lap, and he doesn't have that. So as long as Eckrich just keeps the car clean and keeps it pointed in the right direction, he's got this in the bag. So I think it would be easy for him to move down a little bit, even if it sacrifices a little bit of time, cost him a little bit. Just move down a lane or two, put yourself in the safety zone, forget Kenny Loggins, don't listen to that man, don't go to the danger zone. Just put yourself in the safety zone, ride the middle, and grab the trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the physics engine that can throw you for a loop and shooting you to the left at Mach 1. This is a new track. This is in all intents and purposes, a new track for iRacing, and we've seen it before. You mentioned the Mach 1 to the left. We've also seen the Mach 1 to the sky. So that's definitely the other direction you really don't want to go, is you scrape that wall, and unfortunately there's just a bug that they didn't realize was there. And 1 minute you're going straight, the next minute you're going straight to the moon, and not in a good way.
Well, I said not to listen to Kenny Loggins, but if the physics eject your car to the sky, then I'd say that's probably the best time to listen to Kenny Loggins and fly into that danger zone. But Jeff Ward continuing to click away at the lead just a little bit, 23 seconds, 0.9, which again, just not enough momentum. We're on lap 175. When the leader crosses the line this time, we got 25 laps remaining, so not much time left here in the Gunskins Championship 200. But again, you never know if Eckrich knocks that wall down a couple more times or anything like that. But we're gonna not hope for that. We want the best for everybody out on track. We don't want to see anybody have their race ended by the wonky physics engine or even by a slight mistake. So hopefully Eckrich can continue to do what he's doing, and Jeff Ward can keep doing what he's doing, and everybody will be no worse for wear. But as they come around, the leader comes around turns 1 and 2. That 9 is getting a little bit smaller in his windshield, and I gotta wonder if Eckrich is even considering the possibility that the 9 could get him.
If I'm the 70th Scott Eckrich, I don't think so. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Just get the thing home. I think he might have, and watching it, he hasn't really gotten away from the wall 100%, but he seems to be back in the corner entry up just a little bit to keep the thing off the wall. And as you mentioned, it was a 23.9 second gap. It's only 23.6, 23.7 now as we're going. So the gap the half second gap that the 9 was gaining, it slowed even more. So I think the 70 has calmed it back down, got it back on the right track, and is just trying to get to the end here. And that's exactly like you said, what he needs to do. He just needs to hit his marks, get to the end, and you didn't get every car, but you got close.
Yeah, bring it home. It's all you got to do, and it's kind of a tougher feat than I think just saying it, really gives it credit for. Easier said than done is the phrase, but that's the thing, man. Even when you're on your own, even when you got the field nearly entirely a lap down, Phoenix is one of those tracks that, as shown by Greg Evans, it'll jump out and bite you at the most unexpected times. Like you can run the corner the exact same way that you think you were running it before, and maybe the track is 2 degrees hotter. Maybe there's just that little bit less grip, and your car does something you weren't expecting. And it's very easy to make a mistake, even if you're all on your own. And I think if Greg Evans, the 2-time now champion, can make a mistake like that, I think that tells us that anybody can. So even though 70 is kind of home free, he's kind of set sail, and all he's got to do is basically coast this bad boy home, he still can't quit trying. He's still got to be focused. He's got to stay on the ball regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah, I mean, I rarely even have a train of thought. I just kind of say things. So you're better off than I am, at least having it in the first place.
I had something right on the tip of my tongue, and I hit the button, and poof, gone. So yeah, that's a thing. Sorry about that.
At that point, you just start saying things like, you talk about the fantasy track at the EA Sports Phoenix fantasy track that went out in the parking lot, had a sand trap, As long as you're saying something. But no, for the leader right now, is he actually scraped the wall on corner entry there. That's kind of interesting. It's just a game of taking it easy and not making those mistakes because, again, we are seeing some fluctuating track temps. I've seen the sun kind of come and go. We haven't had any huge overcast or any huge clouds, but it has changed a little bit here and there. And I think at a track like Phoenix, it's this kind of track, a flat track, where you notice the small differences in temperature the most.
Yeah, absolutely. The temperature swings here are killer to the tires. I mean, we talked earlier in the race about what can tighten the car up in a short amount of time and what can loosen it up coming off the corner. And that's temperature swings. I mean, if the track cools down 5 degrees, you're going to get tighter in the corner and you're going to get tighter coming off a corner. And same thing the other direction. If it warms up 5 degrees, you're definitely going to notice it coming off the corner because you come 10 laps before that, you had all the grip in the world, and then you step on the gas pedal this time, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm facing the wrong direction now, and I didn't do anything different, and that wasn't right. So temperature swings definitely affect a short track much more than they do the 1.5 mile tracks.
Absolutely, just not as much grip and not as much banking to save you. The banking really is such a important thing at a lot of tracks where it kind of mitigates the effect of the track temperature, it mitigates the effect of how your car handles. The banking really dictates how well your car is able to navigate the corner regardless of other circumstances. But when you don't have that much, and mind you, Phoenix does have a little bit more than you think. I believe the exact numbers are between 18 and 20 degrees of banking, which is quite a bit. I mean, you look at 20 degrees on a Pro Tractor, it is quite a bit, but it is a lot less than what we see at other tracks. So we consider it a flat track, but there is just that slight amount of banking. But either way, it's not enough to really dictate the handling of your car. It opens the door to so many other elements, so many other factors of how well you can get around the corner, how fast you can go around the corner, and what your car is going to do suspension-wise, mechanical grip-wise. It's kind of an uncertain thing, which is one of the things that makes Phoenix really interesting. and most of the other flat tracks, including New Hampshire. I mean, thinking back to the first New Hampshire race earlier in the year, Jordan, we had drivers that were pretty much running on the apron through both corners the entire time. I mean, the number 63, Johnny Avila in that race, he was on the apron the entire lap just about, and he was just as fast as a leader. So you come to these flat tracks, and it opens the door to so many possibilities for these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that bottom that Avila was running, and that's not a foreign group to anyone that's been to Loudon on NASCAR Cup weekend up here in the Northeast. It's a foreign group to the Cup cars. They never go down that low. But if you're there for the entire weekend and able to take in the Wheel and Modified Tour race that happens there on Saturday, usually those guys, especially in the fall, used to run that groove constantly below the yellow line. The big wide tires and those modifieds were a perfect way to make it through the corners. And I don't know if Johnny's been to Loudon or watched the modifieds there before, and that's how he learned that groove or what. But it was definitely fun for me to watch, just the aspect of being a modified fan.
Yeah, you don't often see a Cup car take the same lines as a car that was inherently built to turn left. That's the thing about those modifieds. All of the weight is shifted to the left. Everything about them is built to go left. Whereas with stock cars, yeah, they're built to go left, but the weight is a little bit more evenly distributed. There's a lot of rules about how much left-hand weight you can have. And so you can't necessarily run the same lines. Not as wide either. The tires don't have as much grip. So to see Johnny Avila do that earlier in the year, it was pretty crazy. And you know, we're seeing something similar here with Scott Eckrich running this outside line. There's just not many drivers doing it. It's a line that you don't often see, but he's making it work. And actually, just an update on Scott Eckrich in the number 70. He's actually closing back in on Jeff Ward. So any advantage that Ward had on those fresher tires, well, he's hit that plateau. And now the cars are kind of equal on tire wear, and that's putting Scott Eckrich right back to closing in. To lap him, not for position. To lap him.
Yeah. Closing is he's still got a long gap to go. I don't think he's gonna be able to close it in the 10 laps, which Scott, as well as we do, he really wants to. He wants to be able to lap the whole entire field, but just not gonna be enough time with 9 laps remaining. But again, you just can't say it enough. The feat that he's been able to accomplish this season. Second time he's lapped almost the entire field in the race here at the end of the season. Obviously a little bit easier to do when there's only 14 cars, but interesting to see if he could have done it with 40. But nonetheless, it's not a feat to take away from anybody that's able to do something like this.
Yeah, I mean, just far and away. And I think that's something that kind of separates iRacing from a lot of other simulators, is just how high that skill ceiling is. I mean, a lot of people complain about iRacing and they say, man, the cars have so little grip, the cars are so hard to drive, it feels like it's raining all the time, even when it's dry. And yeah, that's frustrating to feel when you're driving the car, but it has the kind of benefit of like when the car is that hard to drive. Because even though this package, this Gen 6 car is relatively easy compared to the old cars, just being easy compared to something else doesn't mean that it's easy in general, right? I mean, these cars are still very difficult to drive. And if a guy is good, the car is going to let them be good. iRacing as a service is going to let them be good. There is really very little limit to how good you can get when the cars are this hard to drive. And I think Scott Eckrich, Greg Evans, a lot of these guys in this group are a good example of that.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And the most fun thing to do when you have a simulator set up like Wiggly do is your friends come over and they think, and they know, even if they've never watched NASCAR, the notion is, how hard is it to turn left? And it's always a blast to throw them on the simulator for 10, 15 minutes and say, okay, try it. And they do it, and they start knocking a wall down, or they're going 40, 50 miles an hour versus the 150. It's like, all right, yeah, you can do it at 50 miles an hour. Now pick up pace a little bit. And they have a whole new respect for what these guys are doing, even on the simulator and even in real life. It's one of the great things about iRacing that they've done building the simulator.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, going back to the races that NASCAR held during the pandemic, even the drivers who drive these cars in real life were struggling with iRacing, and that's how difficult this simulator can be. 70 getting a little loose there out of turns 3 and 4 across the stripe. He's on lap 197, so 4 more times around this relatively short track, although technically classified as an intermediate, leaving about a mile for the number 70. And You know, I don't want to say lapping Jeff Ward is completely out of the picture. He gained half a second last time. There's a little bit of lap traffic in front of Jeff Ward, so it's maybe not super likely, but I could almost see it being a possibility. Oh my goodness.
Caution's out.
Oh my goodness, Jordan. Well then. This, oh wow, that's a hard hit. That's a very hard hit for the number 45, John Eckrich.
And the number 2, Greg Evans, your champion of the season. Trouble again. And as the producer Carlos just mentioned, put the checkbook away, Sam. You don't have to whip it out this week, but you definitely have to after tonight.
All right, we're going to take a look at the 3-wide TV replay, see exactly what happened. Oh. See, we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Jordan, sometimes you cut the dog leg. You can't really see who's above you when you come back up the circuit. And unfortunately for the number 45, he was above the number 2 when he rejoined. Just a slight amount of contact in the wall, then back down into him. Then the 45 got stuck in the wall. He pulled a Jimmy Johnson at Watkins Glen right there. That front end was firmly lodged inside that safer barrier. He had to take a tow. But this is fascinating, Jordan, because how do you predict what's going to happen here? We've got 2 really fast cars and 1 car that is also fast who's getting the lucky dogs. We're going to have 3 cars on the lead lap. Only a handful of laps for this green-white checkered in a race where the points are pretty much locked up. You know, these guys know that all that's on the line is bragging rights, so they're going to be aggressive.
They're absolutely going to be aggressive, and it's seeing a bunch of guys coming down pit road. I don't know if they have tires left or not. I thought they only had 4 sets. Some of these guys might have a couple sets of tires. Oh, yeah. Again, math. Thank you, Carlos. They've only been down pit road twice, so definitely have an extra set of tires left over. The only problem is it's still going to be a lap down, so they're going to be fighting for their position, but trying to find the 9 of Jeff Ward, who was on the lead lap. It looks like he pitted. So that's going to put him up second with the 70 of Scott Eckrich with fresh tires. That could this could make it for a fun finish.
I think that gives the 9 a real chance here. I think if you're Scott Eckrich, can you still come? Are the league rules that you can still come down pit road with the lap cars, even if you're on the lead lap?
Yeah, you can, as long as iRacing says you can go down pit road, you absolutely can. If I'm the 70, I might be hooking a hard left right here. It looks like he's gonna stay out. So he's gonna put his skill to the test against the fresh tires of the 9, and this will be interesting to watch. I can't wait to see what happens here. It looks like it's gonna be a green-white checkered.
I'm astounded at that. Maybe Eckrich doesn't have any tires left, but I don't know why he would have less than the number 9. I believe they pitted the same amount of times, but I did see, when I switched to the number 9, I saw the left side of the car get jacked up, so I believe he took 4. If he was going to take 2 tires, he certainly wouldn't take just left sides. This is interesting. There goes the number 9. He's going to... Did he go a lap down pitting? What's going on with the number 9 taking a lap back here?
I'm all sorts of confused now.
It shows him on the lead lap. The timing and scoring shows him on the lead lap. He's coming back down pit road. And the pace car lights are off. Did he only take left? Did he have 2 tires left?
It looks like the race might have finished under caution. That's interesting. I wonder what happened there. It looks like the race is over. The race is finished under caution.
Huh. Well then, I guess I apologize. I guess I was mistaken on the rules. I really thought there was going to be a green-white checkered. So I do apologize.
I'm thinking this might be a full-on glitch in the iRacing system because looking at the race control notes, it looks like Sam had to throw the caution himself. So I wonder if there's a glitch with the new track here that the caution didn't come out, and when it did come out, it didn't revert back to the settings that were made and no green-white checkered. So definitely a really weird ending to the final race of the season. Weird indeed. Did not see that one coming. A bit of an anticlimax, but hey, it happens. Number 70 probably happy that there was no green-white checkered, as he is going to burn the thing to the ground. He's the race winner
But I'm going to take a look through the field. I'm going to try to find that number 2, see if he's got enough car left to do some donuts of his own, as he is going to be the series champion for this season after tonight. And he is on the front stretch, but I haven't seen him do any burnouts yet. A lot of damage to that number 2 machine. He was involved in a couple of scuffles. But regardless, before we get into post-race interviews, let's go ahead and take a look at our final running order for tonight. Obviously bringing home the win nearly a lap ahead of the field. You've got Scott Eckrich in the number 70. He got the pole, he got the win, and I don't think he could have done anything more perfect than he did tonight. Second place, Jeff Ward, the only car clinging on the lead lap by a hope and a prayer, and he's going to bring it home on the podium for that number 9 team, and he's been fast. That's a car that if he comes back next season to race, I'll be keeping my eye on him, because when he showed up at the end of this season, he really showed up. Third place, Michael Krobach. You mentioned that it's a lot like Krobach to have a silently good race. He always runs well, always performs well, but doesn't make the most noise, and I think that is exactly what he has done tonight. He finishes third. Brian Yazek, with his kind of off-the-wall strategy, it paid off, brought him up to fourth. Woody Mahon is going to round out your top 5. Greg Evans, series champion, he's burning it down right now across the line. He's going to bring it home P6. Behind him, Braxton DeWeese, Troy Haight, Kevin Stone, Tim Knott, Mark Myers, John Eckert, and our 2 DNFs for the night, Richard Fletcher and Adam Jersky, are going to round out the field. So that is your finishing order. Now, while Greg Evans works his way through his burnout sequence here, we're going to have a word with our top 3 finishers. I'll go ahead and bring in Michael Krobach, who finished third. Michael Krobach, you got a copy?
Yes, I do. How are you?
Doing good, Michael. I'll tell you what, you ran a really great race out there. Jordan was kind of pointing out that it's kind of your style to silently have a really great run without making too much noise, and I think that's what you did tonight. You were up there in the top 5, brought it home on the podium, and definitely had the pace to be right up there with the leaders. Tell me about the track.
Yeah, it was completely different from last year. The grip felt different, the lines felt different, and we did put a lot of practice in with our Graphics LC Motorsports Alliance member there, Scott Eckrich, and definitely learned a thing or two from watching him and talking to him about what he was doing. Of course, I'm still going to be 3 to 4 tenths a lap off of his pace anyway, even if I'm going to study his laps, but that's still better than being like 8 tenths off. So just happy to put in the time every week with him. He's taught me a whole lot this year, and we felt really comfortable tonight, just kind of managing the wheel spin, learned a couple things in practice, kind of getting that figured out. And I just felt like I was hitting my marks and running pretty consistent laps there for most of the whole race. So yeah, no real issues there. Started second, finished third. Happy to bring this number 72 home in one piece, given that last year we wrecked out at like lap, 10 or 20 at Phoenix. So happy to be here at the end.
Definitely consistent is a good way to describe it. I got to ask, that was 197 laps under green with no yellow flags. So you had to be on the ball 24/7. What kind of challenges did that pose going so far under green?
Well, the main challenge was driver comfort and heat. We did go for a walk up here in cold Canada earlier, and we left our leggings on and a sweater and had the door in this room closed. So we were boiling at around lap 40 and having to make it another 160 laps after that. We were just hanging in there for dear life, trying to focus on hitting our marks and staying ahead of Greg. Once I saw him spin, I thought that would be a good shot for a podium, but then he had his car fixed. His pit crew did a good job, championship-winning pit crew, and it was back to normal. And he was chasing us down there at the end. And so I have to thank Brian for getting off sequence there on that pit strategy, because his fresher tires there made Greg fight really hard with him, and that kind of gave me a little cushion to drive away. So all in all, just happy I didn't make any mistakes. Had a good battle with Adam there. It sucks that his internet dropped out. Would have been a good fight for third or fourth. But just happy to bring this thing home in one piece and finish, I think, second in the points this year. It feels a little bit weird with Scott's, I think, 15 wins and Greg's like 7 or so for me to finish second, but just happy to run all the miles. I think we completed the most miles all year. So it's nice to bring home the Ironman award too.
Absolutely. A lot of drivers, it's one thing for a sim racer to try to simulate running a race, but Michael Krobach simulates the unbearable heat of the cockpit with his attire. So that's next level simulation there, Michael. Before we let you go, first of all, congratulations on the podium finish. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out or thank?
Yeah, I got to thank the whole LPM, Graphics, LC Motorsports, NLR Sim Racing Team Alliance. Great to have these guys week in, week out with us. Got to thank all the sponsors, HPP Simulation, Clip on That Apex, Thumbs Up, Cancer Down, Sim Racing Merch, Midwest Simulation, Spotlight, Sim Racing Apps, Host Venom, CJ Automotive, Amzo by Adam Blattle, Mahon Speed Laboratories, and MC Squared editing services, my own deal here. So if you need some editing done, any type of document work, just send it my way, and it can help you out. And thank you guys for putting on a great show all year, and Sam and Jordan for keeping the series going.
And thank you for showing up to the races and putting on a show for the fans. Definitely kind of a theme for tonight. Just really appreciating that, the producer was kind of pointing out you guys kind of had a weird circumstance with the switch, halfway through the season, but you stuck with it and you put on great shows for the fans. So thank you for that. And again, congratulations on the podium. And we'll talk to you next season, Michael.
Thanks, Andre. Have a good night.
Michael Krobach out of the booth. Now I'm going to bring up second place finisher, Jeff Ward. He's with Jordan Harnish.
Jeff Ward, you got a copy?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Not too bad. Talk us through your run tonight. I mean, that was one of the best battles we've seen all season long. The first 80 to 100 laps between you and Greg Evans.
Oh man, that was a great run there with Greg. He's always a fun guy to race with. We've always raced each other pretty clean. Never had any run-ins, so a lot of respect for him, and congrats to him on championship. What a way to go. He's a consistent driver and definitely earned that one. But man, we had a pretty good speed. Scott was already checked out by the time we got by Greg there. I don't know if we had anything for Scott, maybe real late into a run, but he had some really good short run speed and had that track figured out, and looks like the practice time for him paid off. But so congrats to him on the win. But we'll get out here and take second, man. And the times that we did race this year, I felt like we had some pretty good speed, and hopefully next year we can plan on running a full schedule and trying to race for a championship. And we kind of joined late this year, so didn't really have that luxury. But next year, hopefully we can go for it.
Yeah, you mentioned the few times you raced this season. Thinking back, there's just great runs and some unfortunate luck there for those couple races you ran earlier in the season, but definitely some good runs later here in the season. Do you think if you could have got by Greg a little bit sooner in the first run, you would have been able to close the gap and keep the gap a little bit closer with Scott?
It was such a handful out there that I was battling with Greg, and finally got a chance to look down at my scoring there, and Scott was 7 seconds ahead. And I was like, man, this dude's on rails, and unless we get a caution, we're definitely got a second place car here. So unfortunately we didn't get a caution until like one lap to go, and then didn't have any green-white checkers. I went in and pitted thinking we'd have a green-white checker. I was thinking, man, if this goes back green, I might rough him up a little bit if I get a chance last race of the season. But that's my teammate, and like I said, congrats to him. He was the car to beat tonight.
Yeah, it would have been great to see a green-white checker like we all thought up here in the booth that we were going to get to, but seems like iRacing scoring got a little wonky here at the last race of the season. Nonetheless, congratulations on a very impressive second-place finish. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, a huge shout out to Sim Racers Club, everybody behind the scenes there, especially for letting me join so late and be a part of this. Thanks to you guys in the booth. Thanks to Loud Pedal Motorsports, Graphics LC, Scott, Mark Cohn, all the other guys behind the scenes on my team. And yeah, man, it's been a great year as far as sponsors, with Lexington Distilling and Brewing being on the car. I got a shout out to Conundrum Outfitters, just friends and family that's watched all year. And like I said, we're coming for them next year.
Well, we look forward to seeing it next season, and congratulations on your second place finish, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Jeff Ward out of the booth. Pretty happy with that second place run. It's time to have a word with our race winner, Scott Eckrich. Let's bring him up. Scott Eckrich, you got a copy?
I got you.
Well, Scott, you didn't show any mercy tonight. You went out there, you got out front, and you never looked back. It was 197 laps under green, and for you, it was 197 perfect laps. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I kind of noticed. I was watching the iRacing live race last night, and I kind of noticed that this track was not behaving as it normally does. I guess that, with the reconfiguration, I guess they updated some things with the surface modeling. So I feel like I probably kind of got a little bit of an advantage on some of these guys because I was watching that pro race on iRacing Live last night. So I think it just took them a little while to catch up to what was going on there, and by the time they did, I was I had already gotten a pretty good lead there.
Absolutely. I think pretty good might be an understatement. At one point, you had the entire field a lap down, which is quite the accomplishment. Tell me a little bit about the tire situation in that race. Obviously, with your second pit stop, it didn't really matter when you pitted. You had such a huge lead that you could have come in 20 laps early or 20 laps late, and it ultimately wouldn't have changed much. But that first pit sequence, when things were kind of still up in the air, what was the mindset there?
Yeah, in the pre-race, we kind of had the plan with the team to do the the two stoppers, so that's every 66.6 laps, and it just kind of stuck to that roughly. I think when we pitted the second time was roughly the same. The first time we ran a little long just to make sure there was going to be no cautions or anything. Turns out that wasn't going to be an issue. Didn't know at the time, but just playing it safe, trying to end the season well.
Yeah, I would say that's about the best way to end the season, is when you just about left the field. A great season you had. I mean, 16 poles and now 15 wins in the year. I can't even put into words how incredible of a season that is. What does that do for the confidence going into next year?
Yeah, anytime you have a good season, it's a good, it's a good feeling going into anything. It's just, that you got what it is. And I had a big break before this year, so it had been a couple years. So it's kind of good, to get that feeling back. You still got it.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, congratulations on the win. Is there anybody that you would like to thank?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank all you guys for up in the booth for putting this thing on weekly for us. We really appreciate it and enjoy watching it. The LPM guys all year for helping out the league and helping out me, and the practice sessions they sponsored all year were obviously invaluable for a bunch of these races. We've got Graphics LC Motorsports, my team. Big shout out to the car owner, Mark, for bringing me on this year. We really enjoyed racing for them. Was glad to see Jeff get another solid finish for the team too. So that was all exciting. And then obviously the league owners here for putting this thing on every week for us and keeping the thing running through thick and thin this year.
All right. Well, again, congratulations on the win. We thank you for your time, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, race winner out of the booth, but we got one more interview, as it is the last race of the season. Jordan and I, we're both going to have some questions, I'm sure, for our champion. Let's see what his thoughts are on the race, the season. Greg Evans, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, Greg, you're walking away the champion after tonight. It's one thing to win one championship. That's a pretty big deal, but to get two in a row, that's got to be something special. What does it mean, man?
Oh man, it's awesome. We had a pretty good year. Didn't get the amount of wins that we wanted, but everything kind of fell in our lap whenever it mattered. And I hate to see everything that happened this year. In the last 4 races, but it's I hate to say it's part of racing because it really shouldn't be. But man, it just, like I said, it just all worked in our favor. We're just blessed. Just so happy to win another championship and going to enjoy this for a little while. Talk to Hacksaw PC and hopefully get this computer here pretty soon. We're going to be donating it to one of my best friends and my pastor, Sam Crow. So he's all excited about it. Man, it just could not worked out any better for us this year.
Absolutely. Jordan, you got any questions for Greg?
Man, like you said, it's absolutely great season again for you this season. Kind of great to hear that you're donating your prize winning the Hacksaw PC that's given to the champion the last 2 seasons, which has been you. Your buddy Sam Crow, one of our former competitors here. Does that mean we might possibly see Sam come back racing with us?
I'm not sure what his plans are next year. We've talked about it. I know with him being a pastor, he really can't do Wednesday nights, so it really depends on that. But he's not had a new computer in about 6 or 7 years. And I told him when I got this computer last year, I was like, man, if I ever win another one, I'm going to just give it to you. And I don't think he believed me, but we've actually been in contact with Hacksaw PC this week, kind of knowing the outcome of the night anyway. And man, he's super excited. We actually we got lucky on Friday, and Nick was talking about graphics cards and stuff like that and different options, and I was able to get him a EVGA 3070 for retail off Best Buy, and he just gave me the money back for it. So we've got a brand new graphics card sitting here for whenever Nick gets ready to send the computer, and man, it's he's super excited. So like I said, everybody knows in the gaming world, once you get to about 6 or 7 years old with a PC, it's kind of getting time to update it or to get another one. So like I said, he does a lot for me, and I'm just so happy and blessed and thrilled that we're gonna be able to give it to him.
Absolutely, that's an awesome gesture, and yeah, that's really cool to hear. And of course, a big shout out to Hacksaw PC for everything they've done for this league in general. It's a really cool thing. Greg, so I got to ask, you got 2 in a row, going for 3, right?
Man, I don't know, honestly. I'd love to. I only get to race one night a week due to having a baby and a wife, and now we've got 2 dogs. So I try not to strap my wife too much or ask too much of her, and I promised her, after this year I wouldn't race again on Wednesday nights anymore, so we could go to church and stuff. So it just all depends on what the league decides to do as far as schedule wise and everything. Either way, if I'm not able to run full time next year and go for the championship, you'll definitely see me in some capacity here.
Family always comes first, and regardless of what decision you make or what you're able to do schedule-wise, I don't think there's a better way to go out, than 2 consecutive championships. Just absolutely incredible feat. And again, you've got us all impressed. Up in the booth, you've got the fans impressed, and you've made this season a lot of fun to watch and very special for a lot of the fans. Before we let you go, Greg, is there anybody that you'd like to shout out or thank for your season?
Yeah, man, I've definitely got to thank iRace and iFlag, Carolina Sim Works, Maverick Concepts, Hacksaw PC for this amazing PC they gave me last year. Man, I'm telling you guys, if you never looked up Hacksaw PC, give Nick a try, man. He takes great care of you. He'll tell you what you need, what you don't need. Just amazing customer service. That he is legit. Man, Whalen Engineering, the Sim Racers Club for putting and keeping this thing going when we had some rough times. Sam and Jordan stood behind their word, and they made this league and kept it going even when a lot of guys probably would have gave up on it. And I'm really excited to see what these guys do next year. If you're looking for a league, this is definitely a good league to look into. They treat you fair. And try to do the right things and try to do the right things to keep the league going. So if they tell you they're going to do something, they're going to do it. And just I think all my guys from Steel Horse Racing, Adam Jersky, he had a horrible playoffs, just bad luck every single week. And thank you guys again for being here week in and week out and broadcasting the races. I remember whenever I first, probably like 6 or 7 years ago, I did my first broadcast race. And I was nervous as crap and qualified horribly. Had to come back to the field, and I don't even remember how I finished. But man, just doing those broadcast races and having a broadcast just adds a whole new aspect to it. People are watching, and just intensifies everything. So thank you guys again as well.
Thank you for showing up every week and putting on a show for the fans and making the broadcast what they are. Greg, again, congratulations on the championship, and hopefully we'll be seeing a little bit of you next year.
Sounds good, sir. And as soon as we get this new PC in here and get this graphics cards put in there and everything, we'll be posting some pictures, hopefully, and showing this bad boy off.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. And thank you for your time, Greg.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good off season.
You too. Greg Evans out of the booth. And that is going to do it for our post-race coverage. And it's going to do it for the season. Jordan, that's it. We got our champion. We've ran all the races. What are some closing thoughts?
Man, what a season it was. From everything that started out to everything it ended to, we really couldn't ask for much more. The drivers are incredible. They stuck behind us through thick and thin, through more challenges than they needed to. I just can't thank all of them enough. Can't thank my partner Sam for enough that he does. He puts in more time than most would to keep a sim racing league going. I mean, he's constantly thinking about what he can do to better the league and what's best for the league. I mean, we have so many conversations outside of race nights. It's incredible. I can't thank you yourself, Andre, Carlos, Peter Short, who's been with us this season, enough for everything you guys have all done, and just really looking forward to what we have planned for next season.
Absolutely, I agree. Next season should be a lot of fun. And again, I want to thank you, Jordan, and everybody else for allowing me to come up here and commentate the races for y'all. I've had an absolute blast this season when I've been able to show up. And again, you guys have put on a great show. So if you need a guy next year, you know where to find me. I will more than gladly commentate some more races, because this league has been phenomenal all year long. And Greg hit the nail on the head. If somebody's looking for a group of guys to race with, I don't think you're going to find much of a better one. So thanks to all the fans who tuned in all season long, and we will catch you next season.